Chapter 381, Second Clash with the Akatsuki. Yugo had just completed her second round of attack when she sensed a grave danger. She swung her sword to her right, clashing with a much larger sword coming her way. The force behind Juzo's sword forced Yugo back. But she managed to hold on and not let go of her sword. At the same time, her eyes widened when she saw Juzo's face. She thought, one of the 7 ninja swordsmen of the mist, but hadn't he gone rogue? Don't tell me that it was a lie as well. The Kiri ninjas, who were in a clutch, were surprised as well. They recognized Juzo in an instant. A few of them thought, Juzo, why is he here to help us? Does he want to take this chance to return to the village? But didn't he hate the village a lot? Fumito and Buniro were surprised as well. Neither saw nor sensed Juzo's movements. They wanted to help out Yugo, but the Kiri ninjas attacked and stalled them. A wide grin appeared on Juzo's face as he felt Yugo struggle. Yugo's eyes widened while the others on the battlefield were stunned as they felt Juzo's intense bloodlust. He said, not bad, you should be able to keep me entertained for a while. He suddenly applied a lot more pressure on his sword, forcing Yugo to her knees. At the same time, he formed his left hand into a claw and was about to attack Yugo. However, he stopped and leaned backwards. Multiple vacuum bullets tore through the space he was previously occupying. Since he was too close to the bullets tore through his cloak and left a few small cuts on his chest and upper arms. Juzo's eyes widened as he immediately stepped away from Yugo, while thinking, vacuum attacks, I didn't even sense them. Who is it? Yugo immediately took the opportunity to move away from Juzo. Juzo, who was now on full alert, turned around and swung his sword behind him. As he did, he noticed chakra flowing through Fujin's sword through the corner of his eyes. In an instant, chakra began flowing through his sword as well. The two swords clashed, producing a loud sound. Both were equally matched. However, instead of engaging in a sword fight, Fujin forced his sword out of the way and punched Juzo with his left hand. Noticing the chakra concentrated in his hand, Juzo concentrated some chakra in his feet. He used the force of Fujin's sword to step away from him and kicked the incoming punch. Unlike the swords that were equally matched, this time Juzo was sent flying for a few meters. He winced as he felt a pain in his foot. However, he ignored it and flipped in the air to land on the ground while staring at Fujin. His entire attention was on Fujin. Seeing Fujin take action, his teammates sighed in relief. They didn't have any confidence in taking on one of the few remaining 7 ninja swordsmen of the mist. At the same time, the Kiri ninjas were shocked once again. They were already surprised to see Juzo, but seeing him getting forced back so easily was an even greater surprise. Fujin didn't continue his attack. He was in an even more serious mood as compared to Juzo. He cursed internally. What the hell is Juzo doing here? And since he is here, does that mean Itachi is here as well? Shit. Fujin activated and spread his chakra field over a radius of 3 kilometers. However, other than Juzo, his team, and the Kiri ninjas, he didn't detect anyone. However, a frown existed behind his mask as he analyzed. I can't fully trust my sensory skills. Itachi might be able to stay hidden, though I will sense him if he uses his chakra. Another one I need to look out for is Zetsu. I can't use the skills I want to keep a secret if he is spying on me. But without them, defeating Juzo would be very challenging. Since Fujin didn't press on the offense, Juzo managed to get a breather. Fujin's team and the Kiri ninjas were on alert as well. The battlefield entered a deadlock as no one made a move. Juzo broke the silence as he chuckled and said, I thought I was only attacking some small fries from Konoha. To think that I would draw out the spectral swordsman. Haha, what a lucky day. Though Fujin was wearing his mask, using the vacuum jutsus gave away his identity easily. Juzo thought, this bastard has a higher bounty than all these Kiri ninjas combined. Kakuzuas would be pissed at missing out on such a bounty. Ha ha ha. Hearing the name, the expressions of the Kiri ninjas became grim. However, they soon recovered as they had Juzo, who looked to be on their side. But they weren't too sure as everything happened too suddenly. Fujin instructed, leave this guy to me, hunt down the rest. Yugo, Fumito and Buniro immediately flickered. Juzo didn't move. Unlike what the Kiri ninjas thought, he was here to collect their bounties. It didn't matter to him whether he killed them himself or collected their dead bodies from the Konoha ninjas. The Kiri ninjas immediately retreated, leaving only Fujin and Juzo facing each other. Fujin continued scanning everything in his surroundings properly and talked with Juzo to buy some time. He asked, haven't you gone rogue? Why are you getting in the middle of my mission? Juzo replied, if you let me kill you, I will let your team complete the mission and go back to Konoha. Otherwise all of you die. As he said, he once again unleashed his bloodlust. Fujin was unaffected by his bloodlust. He muttered in a soft but audible voice. Juzo Biwa, one of the 7 ninja swordsmen of the mist, known throughout the world for your inhumane brutality and slaughtering the weak without any reluctance. A grin appeared behind his mask as he unleashed his killing intent as well and said, "It's not often I meet someone with a more intense bloodlust than mine. I wonder whether you live up to your reputation." Though Fujin had killed a lot of people in the past 3 years, it still paled in comparison to someone like Juzo, who was known to inhumanly slaughter for a longer time than he spent in this world. Fujin flickered and appeared in front of Juzo. Swinging his sword at full power, Juzo replied in the same manner. The 2 swords clashed. However, the result was different from the earlier clash. Juzo's eyes widened as he noticed the large amount of force behind Fujin's sword. In addition, a crack appeared on his Kabibi Koryako sword. However, even before he could react to that danger, he noticed another grave threat. Instead of engaging in a pure sword fight, Fujin shot a dozen vacuum bullets at a close range. Juzo immediately retreated and barely managed to dodge the incoming vacuum bullets. However, several more cuts appeared on his body. At the same time, he became very serious as he realized, his reputation isn't fake, this will be a tough fight. Fujin didn't give Juzo any time to rest. He flickered behind him and shot a vacuum cannon at Juzo. Juzo immediately got out of the way and counterattacked with water bullets, forcing Fujin to dodge as well. As for the vacuum cannon he dodged, it kept traveling through the forest. Weirdly, it didn't hit a single tree and kept moving in a straight line for 200 meters. As if Fujin had aimed it in a manner to avoid all the trees in its path. Finally, it was about to hit a plant that had a weird shape and was made of 2 distinct colors. Unlike every other plant in the forest, in an instant, that plant moved and went underground. As soon as it did, one of its halves exclaimed, "That was scary, that attack nearly killed us, but how did he know that we were here? Or was that attack just a fluke?" The other half, which was completely black, said, "He was sensing the entire area earlier. I felt his chakra field at our location a few times, but he didn't focus on us, so I thought that he couldn't sense us. His information in the bingo book isn't accurate. With such sensing abilities, he is among the best sensors out there." As soon as the Zetsu moved, Fujin sensed their chakra fluctuations. A smile appeared behind his mask as he thought, "That area felt a bit off for some reason. My guess was right. That bastard Zetsu is keeping an eye as usual." Juzo didn't notice that Fujin's real attack wasn't aimed at him. He continued attacking. Several water dragons formed in front of him and moved towards Fujin. Fujin moved back and jumped on top of the trees. Several vacuum bullets formed in his mouth, and he aimed at the heads of the water dragons. The vacuum bullets pierced through the water dragons and dispersed the jutsu. Juzo ignored them as they weren't heading at him, but they kept traveling and pierced the ground a long distance away. Chapter 382. A foreign chakra. Setsu, who was hiding underground, instantly felt something drilling through the soil. It immediately went deeper into the ground. A fraction of a second later, the vacuum bullets passed through the space it was in earlier, barely missing its head by a few inches. It pierced through the Venus flytrap-like extensions around its head, tearing away a good chunk of it. White Setsu looked at the damage and said, "This guy is scary. He almost killed us again. I'm afraid Juzo will have a tough time if he can even find time to attack us while fighting him." Black Setsu said, "Juzo is strong as well, but we need to inform Toby and Pine. This fight will be a close one. Let's first ask Kisum to reinforce him." Setsu immediately left the battlefield. Fujin sensed his movement and wondered, "Did I scare it away?" He dodged Juzo's attack and analyzed. Unlikely. Black Zetsu doesn't want to expose its fighting abilities. He should have gone to call in for reinforcements. "I will have to end the fight before they arrive. I can't take on 2 ninjas close to the rank S at the same time. I should also consider the possibility of just one half having left and the other half staying back to observe or interrupt, though I doubt he would want to expose himself. I should maintain my chakra field in case he does so." He turned his attention towards Juzo as he wondered, "Why is he so determined to kill me? I have given him several opportunities to retreat. Sigh, I didn't want to get on Akatsuki's radar so quickly." Despite being aware of him, Fujin barely had any memories of Juzo. After all, he was barely even shown in the series. Though Fujin did collect all his information available with Konoha, it didn't include any information about how loyal Juzo was to Akatsuki and Pain, as Hiruzen couldn't make information he received from Itochi public. So Fujin couldn't guess his intentions. As they battled, Fujin felt Juzo's killing intent increasing steadily. He thought, "I don't remember who killed him and how, but I know that he will end up dead soon." so I wasn't very interested in killing him, but if he wants to go all out, I can't afford to hold back. Without having to monitor Zetsu's location, Fujin became very determined and focused entirely on Juzo. He flickered to dodge the incoming attacks and flickered again to appear next to Juzo and slashed his sword at his waist. However, Juzo flickered away without any seals as well. He appeared behind Fujin and attacked him with his sword. However, Fujin flickered out of the way as well. Juzo immediately followed him. Both Fujin and Juzo flickered continuously, trying to outspeed one another and land a fatal blow. Loud sounds of their blades clashing with each other were heard several times. Several scars were left in the ground and several trees were cut. However, Fujin was unharmed, while Juzo didn't take any more damage. Fujin appeared in front of Juzo once again and attacked with his sword. Juzo flickered away to dodge. Fujin stopped swinging his sword and immediately flickered as well. Both appeared close to each other at the same time. Having the initiative, Fujin slashed horizontally, aiming to hack Juzo into two. Juzo raised his sword defensively while building up his chakra. Fujin's sword hit Kabibi Koryoka once again, and yet again, a new crack appeared in the sword. This one was the largest yet, as it moved almost halfway into the sword. The large Kabibi Koryoka had around a dozen cracks in it by now, though Juzo was also proficient in using chakra flow. His chakra flow didn't have any element to it. Due to Fujin's wind chakra, his sword was much sharper than Juzo's. Despite the Kabibi Koryoka being a better sword, Juzo used the force of Fujin's attack to fly backwards while spitting out a large amount of water towards Fujin. Due to its volume, it built momentum and began collapsing towards Fujin. Fujin stood his ground and built up chakra as well. Wind release infinite breakthrough jutsu. He exhaled extremely strong winds. The winds directly broke through the water and forced it back. They continued moving towards Juzo, who was quickly backing away while weaving hand signs. Water release great waterfall jutsu. Juzo expelled a large amount of water from his mouth high into the sky. After reaching high enough, it began cascading down towards the windstorm heading at him. The winds broke into the water and changed its direction back towards Juzo. However, the high volume of water dulled the wind blades in the jutsu and slowed down the jutsu until it was harmless. Fujin didn't attack anymore and just observed Juzo getting hit by his own attack despite knowing that it wouldn't harm him. He analyzed. He's strong, very strong. Though I have an advantage in chakra reserves and strength, I don't have an advantage in speed. His movement and combat speed are as fast as mine, while his reaction speed is even faster, due to his significantly richer battle experience. He is able to negate my advantage in terms of strength very easily and has no issue dodging my vacuum bullets and blades of wind. Even if I use vacuum slash, I will probably be only able to cut that sword in half while he will flicker away. It will be the same with vacuum grappling. Fujin sighed internally as he thought, these attacks can easily rip into those Ila Junins trained to counter me. But against Juzo, though I will make things difficult for him, I won't be able to land a killing blow. Not to mention, I doubt this will be my last clash with the Akatsuki. Exposing those skills now would put the entire Akatsuki on guard against those attacks. It will be disadvantageous for me in the future. As Fujin was analyzing, mist began covering the entire region. Fujin stood in his spot as the mist engulfed him, unknown to Juzo. A glint appeared in Fujin's eyes. Just like Fujin, Juzo was thinking hard as well. He thought, from the reports, he should be barely 15 years old to be able to give me such a hard time at such a young age. Another fearsome talent has appeared in Konoha. Juzo couldn't help but shudder as he suddenly had a thought. It was, they still have the third Hokage in addition to the two Sanins who are in their prime. And from Itachi's words, Hatake Kakashi and Might Guy are very impressive as well and live up to their father's reputation. Now this guy, if Konoha still had Uchiha Fugoku and Itachi in addition to them. Juzo felt a chill at that thought. Once Fujin, Kakashi and Guy reached rank S, Konoha could have had a greater number of rank S ninjas than Akatsuki. Juzo stopped thinking about such a hypothetical scenario and turned his attention back to Fujin, who was being engulfed by the mist. He was confused as he wondered, why didn't he push on the attack? Is he afraid of fighting me when there is a lot of water around me? But that doesn't explain why he is letting the mist engulf him and not blowing it away. Juzo had expected Fujin to use a wind jutsu to blow the mist away. He intended to take action at that time and create an opening. However, Fujin's inaction made his tactic pointless, so Juzo decided to make use of the mist and made a hand seal. Water release water clone jutsu. 4 water clones appeared around him. They immediately moved silently towards Fujin's location. Juzo looked at the cracks in his blade and thought, I will have to let Kabibi Koryoka drink some blood now. He disappeared and began moving through the mist. Not a single sound was heard as he moved. The 4 water clones arrived where Fujin was standing. To their surprise, he was still standing in his spot with his eyes closed. They observed him for some time, but Fujin didn't make any movements at all and stayed like a statue. All 4 clones wondered, what scheme is he cooking? In order to not let him bide time, 2 of the water clones moved towards him. One appeared behind him, and another appeared in front of him. Both swung their swords at the same time. Fujin's eyes snapped open and gazed into the eyes of the water clone in front of him. Despite the attack, he didn't move. The 2 swords cleaved him into 3 pieces. However, no blood was spilled. Instead, the 2 clones felt a breeze. At the very next moment, Fujin exploded, launching wind blades around him. Both the water clones were too close to react and were hit by the blades, though the attack wasn't extremely fatal. It was enough to dispel them both. Juzo's remaining 2 water clones were surprised. They realized, a wind clone. Juzo, who was hiding not too far away, was shocked as well. He thought, impossible, I didn't feel him move at all. Where is he? I can't feel him at all in this mist. Juzo and his clones became very alert. Not being able to find Fujin in the mist made Juzo nervous for the first time. He stayed on alert, but his eyes suddenly widened. He thought, the mist is mixed with some foreign chakra. Shit. Chapter 383 A Clash of Swords. Juzo felt a chill in his heart. He turned around while swinging his sword with full strength. Fujin chuckled internally while attacking with his sword as well. He thought, although the hiding in mist assassination technique is impressive, how can it compare to Tobirama's Bringer of Darkness? It even counters the Mangekyo Sharingan to a certain extent. In order to prepare myself for any future fights with Itachi, Obito or Madara, I have trained a lot in that darkness. Compared to it, fighting in this mist is a child's play. The 2 swords clashed. Fujin's sword hit the largest crack in Kabibi Koryoka. The crack immediately began enlarging and moving across the blade. At the same time, Fujin shot several vacuum bullets at Juzo. To his surprise, Juzo didn't flicker away like before, and instead dodged them without using any jutsu. At the same time, he disrupted his own chakra flow. Due to the close distance and being taken by surprise, Juzo couldn't dodge by a large distance. In fact, one vacuum bullet grazed past the right side of his abdomen. Several new and deeper cuts opened up on his arms and legs. The vacuum bullet that grazed past his abdomen took out a large chunk of flesh as it passed him, causing it to bleed profusely. However, despite injuring him, Fujin wasn't happy. He realized that my wind chakra was infiltrating into his body and hence didn't flicker. Siak, so much for keeping it a secret. I was hoping to kill him or at least fatally injure him. Juzo flickered away and disappeared within the mist. Though Fujin couldn't see him, he could hear Juzo's voice from all directions. Juzo said, you know Susumu's wind-style genjutsu. So you were the one who made that mess in the land of wind. Though Akatsuki wasn't interested in the affairs of Sunagakure, they were forced to look into it when they received the news that Suna's Jinwekaric was injured. So Juzo was aware of the events that occurred back then despite not interfering in it. Juzo's remaining 2 water clones moved towards Fujin. 2 wind clones formed around Fujin and moved to intercept them. As for Fujin, a dense wind chakra began flowing through his sword once again. Suddenly, a sound of metal hitting the ground was heard. In an instant, Fujin flickered to that spot. The large crack that he had created in Kabibi Koryoka expanded along the length of the sword as it snapped into 2. Though Juzo was aware of his sword's state, his attention was more towards the injury on his abdomen. This created a temporary opening. As soon as Fujin appeared, he attacked with his sword while preparing more rounds of vacuum bullet. Despite having just half of his sword, it was still larger than Fujin's sword. Juzo's chakra flowed through Kabibi Koryoka as he used it to block Fujin's sword and flickered away to dodge the vacuum bullets. At the same time, he constantly disrupted his chakra to not be affected by any genjutsu. Fujin gave chase and the 2 engaged in high-speed combat once again. The 2 water clones were dispelled by kamikaze attacks by the wind clones, due to how evenly they were matched. Fujin knew that the clones would be in a deadlock as well, so Fujin chose to explode his clones to finish their battles in a rush and gain an advantage. After all, if both of them consumed their chakra at an equal speed, he would get the advantage, while Fujin and Juzo were fighting. Yugo and the rest chased down the Kiri ninjas. Though the Kiri ninjas put up a good resistance, the poisoning kept worse as time passed on, so they kept on getting weaker and had difficulty in dodging and controlling their chakra. Eventually, despite reaching the sea, They were still all killed by Fujin's team. As they sealed and stored the bodies, Buniro said, getting poisoned with an unknown poison before a battle is extremely disadvantageous. Fumito nodded and said, we would have lost easily, and the captain would have to step in if they weren't poisoned. But the situation was completely reversed. Yugo sealed the last body and said, we still have to help our captain. Juzo is one of the 7 ninja swordsmen of the mist. He is incredibly strong. Though we have to be careful about not getting in his way. Fumito thought for a bit and replied, I don't think mind body switch will work on him if we can't pin him down first. Even if I succeed, maintaining it will be very difficult. Yugo nodded and said, yes, let's go back and observe the situation first. What happened? As Yugo was talking, she noticed Fumito's eyes widening all of a sudden. A look of shock appeared on his face. Fumito looked towards the sea and thought, what an immense chakra, who is it? He quickly said, retreat. In an instant all 3 flickered and began moving towards Fujin. En route, Fumito explained what he had sensed. Fujin and Juzo continued fighting without any external interference. As the two fought, Fujin's expression became grim. Despite his injuries, the only effect it had was that Juzo became more and more bloodthirsty. He became far more aggressive and his fighting style. Fujin didn't mind that and wanted to take advantage of any opening he might get due to overaggression. However, Juzo didn't give him a single opening. Fujin analyzed, his resilience is mindle-bowing. Despite those injuries and the blood loss, he is fighting as if he hasn't been injured at all. He is also constantly disrupting his own chakra to eliminate any chances of me casting genjutsu on him. Despite the bloodlust he was projecting on Fujin, Juzo's mind was calm and serious. He analyzed, not good, despite having an advantage, this kid isn't getting cocky and seems content to slowly whittle me down. I can't deal him a fatal blow if he maintains such a guard the entire time. More importantly, my sword is almost completely ruined. Juzo was no longer uncaring about his sword. Due to their frequent clashes, it was completely covered in cracks and it was only a matter of time before it crumbled entirely. Though he could repair his sword later, Juzo understood that he would be in deep trouble against Fujin without his sword. As they were fighting, Fujin's eyes suddenly widened. Juzo noticed that and instantly attacked Fujin's wrist with his free hand as their swords clashed once again. Fujin saw the attack and hardened his right arm with the iron skin jutsu while kicking Juzo's elbow. Despite hardening his arm, the strike on his wrist caused Fujin to open his hand and lose his sword. Fujin's kick did the same. It knocked the sword from Juzo's hand and worsened the cuts on his right arm. Fujin ignored his dropped sword and unleashed a flurry of punches and kicks on Juzo. Fujin knew that if he concentrated chakra in his fists, Juzo would run away, so he didn't bother doing it and focused entirely on the speed of his punches, as he didn't sense any chakra concentrated on his fists. Juzo fought back as well. However, to his surprise, he was outmatched once again. Though he defended himself well, Fujin's fists landed on his chest and abdomen several times. He had to use his bleeding arms to defend himself several times, especially because Fujin kept targeting the injury on his abdomen. Even though none of the hits were fatal, Juzo felt the impact of every punch, causing him to cough blood as he fought. Finally, he raised his leg to block Fujin's kick and used it to get away from him. At that moment, Yugo and the rest arrived and landed next to Fujin and shouted, "Captain!" However, Fujin ignored them and fired a few vacuum bullets at Juzo, who was still in the air. Juzo immediately shot water from his mouth into the air and used the force to fall back to the ground. He barely managed to avoid the bullets, but he crashed into the ground and was dragged due to his speed. Fujin flickered and summoned his other sword in his left hand. Juzo quickly recovered and got onto his feet. He saw Fujin appearing in front of him and swinging his sword vertically, aiming to hack him in two. Without his sword, he had no method of defending against the sword. He moved back while building up his chakra and weaving hand signs. Water release water prison jutsu. A water bubble began covering Joza in order to provide him with some defense. At the same time, he concentrated chakra on his chest, neck and head to slow down Fujin's sword. Despite the dense water, Fujin's sword easily pierced into the water prison. Juzo gritted his teeth and weaved hand signs. He thought, "I'll endure this hit and use my body to slow him down. Once his sword lands on me, I'll kill him." Fujin understood Juzo's thought, but he wasn't concerned about his counterattack. He was confident in cutting him in two before Juzo could attack. He kept going. However, at that very moment, another figure broke into the water prison and appeared in front of Juzo. A large white sword blocked Fujin's sword and began sucking the chakra flowing through it. Chapter 384 Explosions. As Fujin's sword slashed into the water prison, a tall muscular ninja with a shark-like appearance appeared in front of him and blocked his sword with a large sword that was wrapped in a white cloth even before the two swords clashed. The wind chakra flowing along Fujin's sword was sucked by the sword. As their swords clashed, both Fujin and Kisum stared into each other's eyes. However, their confrontation was cut short as Juzo completed his hand seals. Water release water bullets jutsu. He shot several water bullets at Fujin. Fujin pulled back and flickered out of the line of attack and appeared next to his sword that was knocked out earlier. He picked it up and flickered next to his team while storing the other sword back in the storage seal on his bracer. Fujin's squad had very grim expressions. Just taking on one of the 7 ninja swordsmen of the mist was already an extremely difficult task. If not for Fujin, they would have retreated after just seeing Juzo, so facing 2 was just too much for them to think about. Kisum didn't press on the attack immediately and checked on Juzo first instead. On seeing that his injuries weren't fatal, he chuckled and asked in a taunting tone, "Looks like the kids roughed you up pretty badly. Can you still fight?" Juzo gathered himself and stood up. He replied annoyingly, "Stop mocking me, of course I can." His tone became serious as he warned, "Don't underestimate that spectral swordsman brat, he is strong." While Kisum was checking up on Juzo, Fujin instructed, "Prepare to fight. Also, be ready to retreat in case more of them appear." Fujin's teammates were surprised. They had expected Fujin to focus on retreating. With his summons, none of them felt that retreating would be difficult. Yugo said softly, "Captain, we need to retreat. We can't take on 2 swordsmen." Fujin cut her off and commanded, "It's fine. Focus on the fight. When you get a chance, help me distract one of them." Yugo had a bitter smile behind her mask. She couldn't help but recall Hiruzen's words to her before she joined Fujin's squad. She recalled his warning about Fujin's tendencies to take the missions to an extreme. Unfortunately, there wasn't anything she could do in that situation. Fujin was insistent on facing the enemies, and she didn't have any time to logically argue against him. Kisum nodded on hearing Juzo's warning. He turned his attention to Fujin and said, "The spectral swordsman of Konoha, do you think that you can increase your reputation by taking on the 7 ninja swordsmen of the mist?" Fujin ignored his question and said, "Biui Juzo and Hoshigaki Kisum." 2 of the 7 ninja swordsmen of the mist joined Akatsuki. Juzo and Kisum were surprised to hear the name of their organization. Akatsuki wasn't very active around Konoha. Kisum said, "I'm surprised that someone from the mighty Konoha knows about me and the Akatsuki." Unlike Juzo, Kisum hadn't gained much fame in the world. After all, he had joined Akatsuki immediately after getting one of the 7 swords, and despite being strong, he didn't have much fame as he hadn't accomplished anything spectacular. Fujin ignored him once again and continued, "I had heard that your group was active around the Land of Earth and the smaller countries around there, but by showing here and assisting Kirigujka, are you 2 also fake rogue ninjas who keep serving the Mizukage obediently? Or is Akatsuki secretly controlled by the Mizukage? Regardless, it is impressive. Every other village considers Kirigujka to be very weak right now, but now everyone will need to reconsider Kirigujka's forces." Fujin was very careful with his words. He said nothing about the Jinghyukaris like Kakashi had. If he did, he didn't doubt the fact that returning to Konoha would be an incredibly difficult task. Kisum was amused by Fujin's analysis. He had no reason to correct Fujin. However, Juzo was offended. He snorted and asked loudly, "Do you think I'll work for those scumbags?" Fujin asked, "So why did you stop us? Why are you even fighting and risking your life?" Juzo answered in an annoyed tone, "I already told you. I want your bounty. Just hand over your head obediently, and I'll let your subordinates escape." Both Kisum and Juzo began charging up their chakra. Though they had the advantage and had a confident expression, both were very alert towards Fujin. After all, his vacuum attack still posed a great danger to them. One careless moment could cost them their lives. At the same time, Setsu spectated the fight once again. This time, Fujin couldn't detect his presence. On seeing them charge their chakras, Yuga, Fumito and Buniro grabbed their weapons and took a fighting stance. Fujin, holding his sword in his right hand, also began exerting his chakra. However, instead of attacking, he looked at Kisum and said, "Why would I want to take on the 7 ninja swordsmen of the mist to enhance my reputation? A group that was claimed to have the capability of hunting a cage but was annihilated by a mere genin. If I was a part of your little playgroup, I would have long killed myself from shame." Juzo's expression immediately became dark. Kisum was a bit offended as well. It was truly as Fujin said, Might Dewey had dragged the name of the 7 ninja swordsmen of the mist through the dirt. Even though Dewey had power beyond the Kaij level, he was only a genin officially. Once the news regarding their defeat spread in Kirigujka, their reputation hit rock bottom. The 7 ninjas, who were treated as the heroes in Kirigujka, became the butt of all jokes. Though none of them committed suicide, their situation was far worse than Hatak Saikumo's. It was one of the main reasons why 2 of the remaining 3 betrayed Kiri. Of course, Fujin didn't care about that. Instead, he was one of the very few who knew about Might Dewey and admired him. He had only said those words for one reason. A glint appeared in Fujin's eyes as soon as their expressions became dark. He just wanted a momentary distraction. In an instant, 12 wind clones appeared around Fujin. Kisum and Juzo immediately became alert, however. That moment's delay was sufficient for Fujin. All his clones flickered and surrounded Kisum and Juzo on all sides. At the same time, all 12 blasted infinite breakthrough jutsu from all directions. The process of creating 12 clones, surrounding the 2 Akatsuki members, and blasting them with infinite breakthrough jutsu from all sides took merely a fraction of a second. So Juzo and Kisum barely had any time to react. They quickly stood with their backs to each other, while weaving hand signs rapidly. They completed their hand seals at the same moment, and expelled a massive amount of water from their mouths. The water surrounded them on all sides and began rushing out and hit the intense winds. Acting as a barrier for the 2 swordsmen, Fujin's teammates were surprised by the quick attack. Fujin didn't pay any attention to them as his entire attention was on Kisum and Juzo, who were trapped at the center while surrounded by water and intense winds. Though the situation was temporary, Fujin thought, this is sufficient. Chakra flowed through Fujin's sword once again as he took a step forward. Juzo shouted as he controlled the water around him, Look out for vacuum bullets, they are very fast. Suddenly, both Juzo and Kisum felt danger. Juzo looked at his body while Kisum turned his eyes towards Juzo. Juzo immediately tried to cover his own body with chakra, but it was too late. With multiple loud booms, a series of explosions went off on Juzo's body as if his body was covered in explosive tags. Chapter 385. The number keeps decreasing. First, an explosion went off on Juzo's right foot. Immediately after, round a couple of dozen explosions went off on his chest, abdomen and arms. Each explosion was just slightly weaker than the explosions from an explosive tag. Kisum, due to being very close to Juzo, was caught off guard. He was caught in some explosions. Fortunately, he was facing Juzo's back, so the explosions didn't harm him much. Only his cloak was badly damaged. He immediately moved away from Juzo and looked at him with a frown on his face. He wondered, what the hell, why did so many explosions go off on Juzo's body? He turned his attention towards Fujin and wondered, did he do it? But how could he set up Juzo? As Juzo was hit and Kisum was distracted, their control over the water defending them from the winds was lost. So the wind immediately began piercing through the water. Noticing the danger, Kisum took control of the water around them. It gathered around him, forming a protective barrier. At the same time, 12 powerful jets of water were launched at the 12 wind clones who were still blasting them with infinite breakthrough jutsu. In addition, Kisum also launched water towards the winds to reduce their momentum and dull its sharpness. Though it consumed a high amount of chakra, Kisum's quick action forced the wind clones to stop attacking and take evasive actions. It also dealt with the winds trapping him and Juzo. Having caught a breather, Kisum looked towards Juzo. His eyes widened and his pupils dilated as he saw Juzo's condition. The smoke around Juzo due to the explosion had finally cleared. Despite the explosions, Juzo still stood straight. However, his condition was terrible. The skin on his right foot sole was torn off due to the explosion. Attempting to walk on it would be worse than any physical torture. His arms were in a similar state. The explosions were even worse here due to pre-existing cuts on his arms, in some spots. The impact was so bad that all skin and muscles had been blown off, and his bones were exposed to the air. However, they weren't visible due to being covered with blood. The worst was his chest and abdomen. They were a complete mess, despite having already seen a lot. Fujin's teammates were still affected by the gory state of his chest and abdomen. It was a shock that Juzo could still keep standing. Kisum was shocked as well by the sudden change in the situation. So was Zetsu, who was observing the fight from some distance. Only one person was unaffected by it. It was Fujin, who was observing without any emotion behind his mask. The entire situation played out exactly like he had pictured it in his mind. Kisum's breather was short-lived. As per the plan, the Wind clones turned their attention towards Kisum and fired multiple vacuum bullets at him. Despite being much stronger than the clones, Kisum had no choice but to give those attacks all his attention and take evasive actions. Fujin's teammates also understood Fujin's intentions behind his actions and words earlier and moved. All three attacked Kisum from range to keep him occupied. With Kisum occupied, Fujin made a move. He shot a vacuum cannon at Juzo while moving towards him. The vacuum cannon easily pierced through the water surrounding Juzo and moved towards him. At the last moment, Juzo snapped his eyes open and moved out of the way. His resilience shocked Fujin once again. Despite such lethal injuries, Juzo moved as if he wasn't injured at all. However, it wasn't going to be enough to survive. After all, Fujin wouldn't take pity on someone who tried to kill him. Fujin swung his sword to blow away all the water around Juzo and appeared in front of him. Juzo looked at Fujin and asked in a coarse voice, "You are a Fuin Jutsu Grandmaster." Fujin didn't answer. However, Juzo knew he was right, but he was still confused. He wondered, why couldn't I sense the explosive seals he placed on my body, though I wasn't expecting him to be able to do this? I should have sensed it after he placed one on me and taken the required precaution. Fujin could easily guess what Juzo was thinking. The answer to it was the break Fujin had taken earlier. During his vacation, Fujin created seal imprints for the explosive seal. His idea was to simply put these seals on enemies when engaging them in taijutsu, or even touching them in general, and blow them up after he had accumulated sufficient seals on the enemy's body. But he faced one major issue. It was that the seal could easily be detected when a ninja circulated their chakra. So using them to surprise his enemies on the battlefield wasn't viable. Understanding the danger, any ninja would cut off that part of their skin in order to survive. Only Chunin level and weaker or indecisive ninjas would fall prey to it. While it would still give Fujin an advantage, he wasn't satisfied with it. In order to make it usable, Fujin's clones worked for several days in order to mix components of various stealth seals into the explosive seal. That was why Fujin took longer to master all the seals in the library, after spending more than the equivalent of a year. Fujin's clones finally succeeded. The result was a seal that was very difficult to detect unless the opponent was a grandmaster in Fuin Jutsu as well or had incredible sensor skills. The only drawbacks were that the power of the explosion was reduced a bit, and the seal was far more complicated. However, thanks to seal imprints, that wasn't an issue. Fujin immediately removed the earlier seal imprint and created new ones, and he hadn't created just one but instead created 4 of them, 2 on his palms and 2 more on his knuckles. So every time Fujin's punch landed or he used his hands to block his enemy, he could create one explosive seal on the enemy's body. Against an opponent of Juzo's caliber, Fujin wasn't sure if his new vacuum jutsus would have much impact on the battle, so he decided to keep them hidden and instead decided to expose his Fuin Jutsu. As luck would have it, Akatsuki wasn't aware of Fujin's capabilities in Fuin Jutsu. Onoki hadn't exposed Fujin's expertise in Fuin Jutsu to anyone other than Kumagatu Rei, who had paid a large price, hoping that he would be able to take out some of the ninjas. Especially from Akatsuki, who tried to hunt him before going down. Onoki's little scheme succeeded on this battlefield. Juzo didn't even consider that Fujin had put a seal on his foot right at the beginning of their fight. Instead, he was more focused towards Fujin's ability to concentrate large amounts of chakra easily. Later, when Juzo tried to unarm Fujin, Fujin gladly accepted the exchange because he wanted to engage in a taijutsu to fight to put more seals on Juzo's body. As a result, Fujin managed to put several seals on Juzo without him even suspecting Fujin. Of course, Fujin had no intention of explaining this to Juzo. He moved forward. Kisum noticed it and wanted to interfere. However, the vacuum bullets made it extremely difficult for him to interfere directly. He muttered to himself, "So annoying, having to keep an eye on 12 ninjas who are ridiculously fast and keep spamming jutsus that I can't block or afford to take is a headache. And then there is also that ninja who uses lightning jutsus into the water I am controlling." He turned his gaze back to Juzo and thought, "You will have to hang on for a few seconds, Juzo." Suddenly, everyone in the battle felt a massive amount of chakra emanating from Kisum. The chakra was incredibly intense and massive. It was as if a tailed beast had arrived on the battlefield. A massive amount of water appeared around Kisum and began flowing in all directions. Fujin's team became nervous but kept attacking from a distance. As for Fujin and his clones, they knew that even with a large amount of chakra, Kisum still wouldn't want to get hit by the vacuum bullets, so they weren't concerned. Seeing Fujin rushing towards him with a sword in his hand and sensing Kisum's massive chakra and the water he released, Juzo's hands moved to weave a hand seal. However, his right hand suddenly stopped. Dark markings suddenly appeared on Juzo's body, paralyzing him. Shock could be seen in Juzo's eyes as he realized. The self-cursing seal, when did he put it on me, and why didn't he use it until now? Just like the explosive seals, Fujin had placed this seal on his body when they had engaged in a taijutsu. Fujin had used his left palm to stop an incoming punch, and had put the seal on his at that instant. Fujin didn't activate it earlier, as Juzo could try and break through it with his chakra. But in his current exhausted state, he stood no chance. Before he could get any answer, he saw Fujin's sword flash past his neck. Unable to move or resist or get any help, he was beheaded and his head was sent flying away from his body. Juzo, one of the last 2 surviving members of the original 7 ninja swordsmen of the mist, died at the hands of Suzuki Fujin in the land of hot water. The number of the swordsmen from the mist kept decreasing. Chapter 386, Testing Kisum. The act of beheading Juzo immediately gained everyone's attention. Despite working with him for over a year, Fujin's squad were still surprised to see Fujin kill off such a fearsome ninja so quickly. After all, though Fujin had fought with Roshi and Kitsuchi in the past, he hadn't succeeded in killing any of them. Of course, the one who was shocked the most was Kisum. He couldn't help but exclaim, "Impossible." Had Juzo managed to hold on for a few seconds, Kisum would have been able to rescue him and force Fujin to retreat. However, to Kisum's disbelief, Juzo didn't last for even a short while. Some distance away, White Setsu said, "He is indeed scary." Poor Juzo was so helpless. Black Setsu agreed and added, "Yeah, he also used him as a trap to hit Kisum. Had Kisum not been careful, he would have been hit by the explosions as well. In that case, he could have tried to kill them both." Black Setsu's mind quickly began calculating why Juzo suffered a loss so quickly. Despite the achievement of killing such a high-level ninja, Fujin didn't get lost in it. Instead, at the very next moment, he opened up a scroll, sealed Juzo's body and quickly moved towards his head. However, multiple jets of water were launched at him suddenly. At the same time, water was moving towards him like a tsunami. Fujin's team and his clones were already retreating. Fujin was about to seal Juzo's head when a water jet hit Juzo's head and pierced into his brain, destroying it from the inside. Fujin frowned and retreated. He looked at Kisum. Annoyance could be seen in his eyes, but it was just an act. Though taking Juzo's head would seem like Konoha would get a lot of information and would benefit heavily, it was actually extremely counterproductive. Itachi was a spy Hiruzen sent to Akatsuki, so he already had a lot of information about the Akatsuki without the Akatsuki except Obito knowing about it. As for Fujin, he was the person who was the most clear about what Akatsuki was, who their members were, and what their goals were. So any information that Juzo might have was borderline useless for both Fujin and Konoha. On the contrary, Akatsuki would know that Konoha had a lot of information about them, so they could be forced to make a move on Konoha and effectively change the future to a large degree. It was something that Fujin didn't want to see. That is why he first sealed Juzo's body and used a storage scroll to seal his body instead of one of the many storage seals on his bracer, to waste some time without making anyone suspicious of his actions. It warned Kisum and gave him an opportunity to destroy Juzo's head. As they retreated, the massive amount of water kept following them like a tsunami. Fujin said softly, "Back me up." He immediately began building up his chakra. His clones and teammates immediately felt a massive amount of chakra from him, while his teammates would usually be very impressed. At that moment, the chakra that Fujin built up was much less than Kisum's. Regardless, everyone prepared themselves to Wind Release Infinite Breakthrough Jutsu, Wind Release Air Bullet Jutsu, Fire Release Searing Migraine Jutsu, Lightning Release Force Darkness Jutsu almost at the same time. Fujin and his team launched their attacks. Fujin led with a massive Infinite Breakthrough Jutsu. Buniro couldn't use water jutsus while his wind jutsus were far weaker than Fujin's, so he just shot a few air bullets in his attack. Yugo shot her fireball on one side of the Infinite Breakthrough, while Fumito launched his lightning jutsu on the other side. They were followed up by Fujin's wind clones, who exhausted all their remaining chakra and launched vacuum jutsus into the combination attack. The massive combination attack combined seamlessly and hit the incoming tsunami that Kisum had started. The intense winds put a stop to the water's momentum temporarily and even forced some of it backwards. Some sharp winds pierced into the water but couldn't travel far within it. The fire evaporated a lot of water, but wasn't very effective considering the large amount of water. Only Fumito's lightning spears managed to enter the water and electrify it. However, Kisame created layers within the water and controlled their flow to keep the electrified water away. The vacuum jutsus shot by Fujin's clones pierced into the water easily and moved towards Kisame. However, due to the disturbance they caused in the water, Kisame could easily see and dodge them. Sweat gathered behind Fujin and his team's masks. Despite the four of them attacking together, they were only evenly matched with Kisame. In fact, some water had already begun moving towards them through the intense winds. Fujin analyzed. This guy is nuts. Kiri was crazy to use him merely to kill his teammates. He is already in a whole different league as compared to someone like Juzo. Though Fujin was already aware of how strong Kisame would be by the start of the Fourth Great Ninja War, he was interested in checking how strong he already was. His observation made him very unwilling to fight Kisame so far away from Konoha. Fujin decided, it's time to retreat, but running away from him will be difficult if he doesn't intend to let us off. Even though I'm faster at escaping, the other three won't be able to shake him off. Sigh, I'll have to expose my summons as well. Fujin was about to summon Kaito when he suddenly sensed something. A look of surprise appeared behind his mask as he wondered, what are they doing here? He suddenly put over 10% of his chakra into the infinite breakthrough jutsu. The sudden infusion of chakra into the jutsu powered it up considerably, causing it to force its way through the water Kisame was controlling. His actions surprised Kisame and his teammates. Kisame retreated backwards while wondering, what is he intending? Though he forced me back, such a chakra expenditure will be very disadvantageous for him. Suddenly, 3 shadow clones, each with 10% of his maximum chakra, appeared around Fujin. At the same time, a seal lit up on his bracer, and 600 explosive tags appeared in front of him. He said, retreat. Fujin's teammates, who weren't able to understand the reason behind his actions, immediately flickered in the opposite direction along with Fujin. They finally guessed the reason behind Fujin's actions, and wondered, does he intend to delay Kisame long enough that we escape his detection range? But why is he still keeping his chakra field active? And why did we fight first if he wanted to withdraw? Unlike Fujin, his teammates weren't aware of Zetsu's existence and his abilities. Due to Zetsu, Fujin knew that escaping like usual wasn't possible. The only way to escape was by either deterring Kisame from chasing them or flying away. Unfortunately for them, Fujin didn't bother clearing their doubts. He consumed a soldier pill and said, we will keep running until we reach Konoha. No breaks, and at least one of us will keep chakra fields active at any given time. If any more strong enemies appear, we will avoid them. His teammates nodded and kept moving at a fast speed, back on the battlefield. Fujin's shadow clones controlled the explosive tags and rained them down towards Kisame in waves. Kisame immediately spat out more water to douse those explosions. As he did, he realized, despite having so many tags, he is only using a few in every wave. He wants to delay me until he can get out of the range. It looks like he doesn't know about Zetsu's abilities. Kisame didn't mind wasting some time to defeat the shadow clones. He could find Fujin easily with Zetsu's aid. He blocked all the waves of the explosive tags and then rode a water wave to move closer to Fujin's clones. Fujin's clones analyzed. This might be a good time to test some of Kisame's abilities. For instance, would contact with the sword immediately pop up a shadow clone due to its ability to suck chakra? One of the clones flickered and appeared on top of Kisame. Chakra concentrated on his fist as he punched Kisame. Kisame immediately raised his sword to block the punch. The chakra gathered around the clone's fist was easily absorbed by the sword. Despite that, when the clone's punch landed on the sword, Kisame felt an intense force. Had he been weaker, he would have been forced under the water. As soon as his fist landed on the sword began absorbing his chakra. The clone analyzed. So the clone won't be dispelled in an instant. I guess it will only happen after it sucks away enough energy. As he was analyzing, sharp scales broke through the bandages and hit the clone's hand. Fujin's clone immediately used Iron Skin Jutsu to harden his fist. However, the chakra the sword absorbed caused his jutsu to fade away instantly and created deep cuts in his arm. Dispelling him. Chapter 387. Swordsman of the Mist Clashiv Zetsu, who was observing the fight, felt something and turned its head around. Its eyes immediately widened as it thought, not good, we can't stay here. Kisame turned his attention towards the remaining 2 clones as all the bandages around his sword were torn apart by Samada. Neither clone had made any move. He wondered, Why are they just observing like they want to test out my abilities? I thought that he wanted to buy some time. The clones received the memories of the dispelled clone and realized. It looks like the Senju Taijutsu style is ineffective on him. No, rather, it benefits him instead of harming him. And he also absorbs the chakra flow from my swords. Sigh, what an annoying fighter. Apart from those annoying Mangekyo and Rinnegan users, Kisum might be the toughest opponent for me. Immediately a sword appeared in each clone's hands as they prepared for another clash with Kisum. Kisum weaved hand signs rapidly. Water release shark bomb jutsu. Immediately, the water around Kisum transformed into 5 sharks and moved towards the clones rapidly. Both clones just slashed their swords, generating wind slashes that destroyed the sharks. At the same time, both flickered away from Kisum, as a lot of water was flooding towards them from behind the sharks. Kisum riled up his chakra and was about to attack when he suddenly stopped and looked behind. From the ground, 2 Venus flytrap-like extensions emerged before Zetsu became visible. Immediately, the eyes of Fujin's clones began glowing as they observed Zetsu, or more specifically, Black Zetsu. One of the clones muttered aloud, "What kind of freaks do you have in this organization? What is that? A Venus flytrap?" Zetsu ignored Fujin and said in an urgent tone. "Kisum, you need to retreat. A large number of Kirigujka ninjas are rushing towards us." Meanwhile, Fujin's clones observed, "He has such a strange body. I can barely detect anything from him. I wonder if the Sharingan or the Byogakyan can see more." Probably not, considering how much Madara trusted him and that no Hyuga mentioned anything odd about him. "I'll need someone like Orochimaru to dissect him and study him properly." Kisum was surprised. He looked at Fujin's clones and said, "I see, so you retreated on sensing them." Kisum had felt Fujin's chakra field while approaching that place, so he was aware of how large the range of his sensor ability was. One of Fujin's clones nodded and answered, "Yes. Though I wasn't sure who it was, I guessed it was Kiri. However, I'm surprised that you want to retreat so quickly. Aren't you just an undercover Kiri ninja? I thought that you would ally with them and outnumber us." Kisum understood that Fujin's clone was talking because he wanted to waste time and keep Kisum there until the Kiri ninjas arrived. He said, "I will remember you. Next time, you won't escape so easily." Fujin's clone chuckled and replied, "If there is a next time." "That is, do you think that escaping will be so easy?" Immediately, both clones flickered and peppered Kisum with vacuum bullets. They had only one goal, and that was to delay Kisum. Though they were just shadow clones, Kisum couldn't dispel them easily as they kept their distance from him and dodged all attacks. He tried escaping in other directions, but the clones would always follow him and slow him down. Half a minute later, another figure appeared on the battlefield. He observed, "Kisum, what is he doing here? Didn't Mitsuru say that Juzo was the one attacking him? Where are he and Juzo, and who is that masked ninja making Kisum retreat?" Zetsu had already disappeared under the ground, so he wasn't seen by the newcomer. His appearance immediately attracted Kisum and Fujin's clones' attention. Fujin's clones thought, he is the one leading them. Not bad, he is quite strong. It'll be interesting to see how this goes." Meanwhile, Kisum had a serious face as he muttered, "Hazuki Mangetsu." Fujin's clones immediately flickered and moved to a location such that Kisum would be between them and Mangetsu. They launched supercharged infinite breakthrough jutsu at Kisum, cutting his path off and forcing him to defend. As Kisum defended, Fujin's clones observed Mangetsu. To their disappointment, Mangetsu didn't make a move to attack Kisum and instead observed the situation carefully from a distance. The clones realized, "I see, he's unclear about what the situation is, or perhaps he wants us to fight it out and then take advantage of our weakened state." They understood Mangetsu's thoughts, as Fujin would have had similar thoughts had he been in Mangetsu's place. Immediately, one clone looked at Kisum and loudly declared, "You are lucky that your allies have arrived. Next time, I will kill you and take your sword." In an instant, both clones disappeared by using wind instantaneous body jutsu and escaped in opposite directions. Kisum was incredibly annoyed. He thought, "What an annoying piece of shit. Kill me my ass." Had he stayed, he would have been the one to die. He just wants to force a conflict between me and Mangetsu and reap benefits without risking anything. Mangetsu heard his words and thought, "So my presence forced him away? No matter. Seeing his speed, catching him would be impossible anyway. And without an unknown factor, Kisum wouldn't be able to escape me." Mangetsu flickered and appeared behind Kisum in the blink of an eye, unlike Fujin. He wasn't wary of stepping into the water while fighting Kisum. He was more proficient than Kisum in fighting on water. Kisum immediately turned around and swung his blade to block the incoming strike. A large sword hit the Samidar, and immediately a series of explosions took place, forcing Kisum to retreat. Both Mangetsu and Kisum moved away from each other. Kisum looked at Mangetsu and the Shibuki sword he was holding. He said, "Mangetsu, I didn't expect to meet you here." Mangetsu looked at Kisum and said, "I didn't expect to meet you here either. I know Fuguki was a traitor, so I won't hold you to his murder, but I want the Samadar back. Give it up and you can go." Kisum grinned and asked, "Do you think you can take it from me?" A massive amount of chakra was released from Kisum. The chakra was so intense that even Mangetsu was surprised for a moment. His expression changed to normal immediately as he threatened, "If you don't hand it over obediently, then I will have to take it from your corpse." As soon as Mangetsu finished his statement, several figures appeared. In a second they became visible. Kisum became serious as he observed 24 hunter ninjas. Though Kisum's display of his chakra surprised Mangetsu, he wasn't worried about taking him on due to the backup he had. Both sides immediately entered into an intense conflict. The two sides battled for about half an hour before the battle concluded. Unknown to any of the parties involved, a pair of eyes observed their entire battle. Fujin's squad kept moving rapidly through the land of hot water. As everyone had eaten soldier pills and frequently used the body flicker jutsu, they moved very quickly. They weren't too far away from the border with the land of fire. Suddenly Fujin's eyes widened as he received new memories. He realized, so they were all hunter-nins from Kiri and were led by Mangetsu. Still, Kisum still managed to escape, and he also killed 7 hunter-nins before getting away. Fujin analyzed, "That was expected though. I don't see Kisum being killed so easily. I am surprised that he had to face as much trouble as he did. Mangetsu is quite strong, and he also has several of the 7 swords. Even without the reinforcements, he would have managed to hold Kisum back for a long time." Kisum's performance was surprisingly underwhelming against the Kiri ninjas, as compared to me though. But it is probably due to our fighting styles. My taijutsu and sword skills were completely nullified by him, and the large amount of water allowed him to create sufficient distance from me, giving him plenty of time to dodge or stop my wind attacks. By comparison, Kiri ninjas who weren't afraid of stepping into that water were able to give him a tougher fight, and since they don't use chakra flow or supercharged jutsus, they don't provide Kisum with a lot of opportunities to absorb their chakra. Of course, the biggest factor was Mangetsu himself. He has mastered all 7 swords, so it is likely that he has raised special forces to target the 7 ninja swordsman members who went rogue, kind of like what Iwa did against me. This fight also made me realize I completely overlooked an important aspect during my training. Now that I think about it, I was lucky that I didn't manage to kill Juzo quickly and hence got to fight Kisum. Otherwise, I wouldn't have thought of it even though it was so obvious. Chapter 388. Double blow. Back on the battlefield, Mangetsu stood along with 17 hunter ninjas. They were treating the wounded and sealing the dead. One ninja approached Mangetsu and hatefully said, "Kisum managed to escape. We need to organize more hunting parties to trap and kill him." However, Mangetsu shook his head and said no. His words surprised his subordinates who were around him. Mangetsu explained, "It's pointless. Kisum was already in a battle before we found him, and despite outnumbering him so much, we weren't able to kill him. So any hunting squads we send will be killed by him. Even if they manage to inform us, what's the use if we can't kill him? Only Mizukai Gaisama can kill him, but he can't move around so lightly." The hunter ninjas sighed on hearing the explanations. None of them argued against him. They had just fought Kisum, and his strength was far beyond their expectations. Suddenly, a hunter ninja approached Mangetsu with excitement and said, "Captain, look what I found." Mangetsu immediately looked at the ninja. His eyes widened as he saw what the hunter ninja was holding. He immediately grabbed it and observed it properly. After a couple of minutes he nodded and said, "There is no mistake. This is the hilt of Kabubi Koryoka, but..." His voice became a bit unsteady as he asked, "Who damaged it to this extent? There is almost nothing left of the sword. Also, where is Juzo?" No one answered him. Mangetsu instructed, "Search this battlefield, see if you can find any pieces of the blade. Also, see if you can find any dead bodies." The hunter ninjas nodded. The ones who weren't gravely injured immediately got to work. Due to the high intensity of the battle, neither Fujin nor Kisum had any time to pay attention to and pick up Juzo's sword. In addition, the entire battlefield was flooded by Kisum, so the sword was a few meters under the water. Even if they had time, neither Fujin nor Kisum were very interested in that sword. Only Zetsu could collect the sword. but it didn't see any point in doing that as Juzo was dead. As the ones who managed to hold onto the battlefield until the end, the sword landed in the hands of the Kiri ninjas. They quickly found some of the shattered pieces of Kabibi Koryoka. Mangetsu observed them and concluded, "It looks like they were cut by wind. The masked ninja that Kisame was fighting was using wind jutsus. Did you defeat Juzo before fighting Kisame?" While Mangetsu was storing the pieces of Kabibi Koryoka, a ninja appeared holding the damaged head of Juzo. The head was very damaged. Kisame's attack had poked a hole through Juzo's head and destroyed his brain. A large part of his face was unrecognizable, so the hunter-nins weren't able to identify him. However, having fought alongside Juzo for so long, Mangetsu had no doubts. He sighed and muttered, "Biwa Juzo was killed by that masked ninja who was engaged with Kisame in a fight. From our reports, Kisame and Juzo had joined the same organization. It looks like they came in a conflict." His words silenced the ninjas around him, though they were trained to hunt them down. Everyone knew how difficult that task was. To see that one of their famed swordsmen was killed left them with a complicated feeling. Finally, one ninja asked, "Who could that masked man be, to first kill Juzo and then fight Kisame?" Mangetsu muttered. He used wind vacuum jutsus and wielded swords. From the recent rumors, there is only one such person who is very active. The expressions of all the hunter-nins became serious. Finally, one hatefully said, "The spectral swordsman." Mangetsu nodded and said, "Yeah, though I suppose we need to be thankful to him for once. He killed Juzo and didn't even take the sword away. In addition, he also allowed us to attack Kisame and understand how strong he is." The hunter-nins weren't sure what to say. After clearing the battlefield, they looked for the base they had created. Unfortunately, the base was in ruins. They could only collect the dead bodies buried under the cave and retreated from the land of hot water. The high losses forced them to call off their operations in that country, while the Kiri ninjas were retreating. Fujin was wrecking his mind trying to find a solution to an issue he had realized. He analyzed, "Though my plans for creating a wind domain are excellent, I overlooked one important aspect. That is ninjas who can absorb chakra. If I just emit chakra and let it form a domain around me so that I can control winds, doesn't that mean someone like Kisame can just absorb it?" Granted that there aren't many ninjas with this ability, but the ones who do are absolutely broken. Pain, Madara and later Obito and Sasuke would all be able to directly absorb the chakra I emit. If I can't use my main fighting style against them, then my chances of victory would drop hard. How do I counter that? The only thing I can think of so far is to directly convert all the chakra I emit into wind. This way, they can't absorb wind. No, Rinnegan might still be able to absorb it, but there is nothing I can do about that regardless. I won't be able to make the winds sharper or concentrate them in one place without chakra. Though I could create sharp winds out of their absorption range, it will lose effect as they will have sufficient time to dodge. Fujin thought for several hours, but he couldn't come up with any ideas he could implement at that time. He sighed internally and thought, "The only way I could stop them or make them pay is if the chakra I emit is nature chakra, but I haven't learnt senjutsu yet. Sigh, there is no other way I can think of currently. If I can't think of a good way, I'll have to be very careful while fighting any of them. Without the wind domain, I won't have much of an advantage against them. Fortunately, Madara is dead while Obito and Sasuke won't have that ability for quite some time. Naruto won't expose himself, and I can escape from Kisame. Not to mention, I still have a long time before I master my wind domain. If I can learn the Flying Thunder God by then I can escape easily, even if I encounter Naruto and create an alternative fighting style that is equally dangerous." While Fujin was wrecking his brain and the Kiri ninjas were returning to Kirigujka, a meeting between 8 rank S ninjas was taking place. In a cave, the illusionary bodies of the Akatsuki members appeared. As soon as they did, Orochimaru joked, "We seem to be missing some members." No one joined in his joke. Pain informed the group, "Biwa Juzo is dead. In the last 3 days, we have lost 2 members." Everyone's attention was immediately drawn to Kakuzu's, whose partner was missing as well. Sori asked, "How did they die?" Zetsu answered, "Juzo was killed by Konoha's spectral swordsman during a mission. The other one died in friendly fire." Once again, everyone stared at Kakuzu's, who replied unapologetically, "He was too slow." Orochimaru asked, "You attacked him, didn't you?" Kakuzu's didn't bother replying. Orochimaru turned his attention to Itachi and asked, "Juzo was your partner, wasn't he? I wonder who you would team up with next." Itachi didn't respond. Pain offered Kakuzu's and Itachi to team up. However, both refused, so Pain announced that they would begin looking for new members. Kakuzu's looked at Setsu and asked, Spectral Swordsman is on my hit list for his bounty. How strong is he and what are his abilities? Quite a few Akatsuki members were interested in the answer. Though Fujin had gained a lot of fame recently, none of them expected him to kill an Akatsuki member. White Setsu answered, he is very strong and dangerous. His vacuum jutsus are far more lethal than what the bingo book mentions. His sensor skills are top-notch as well. He nearly killed us a couple of times. Black Setsu added, he is a Fuin Jutsu Grandmaster and can apply explosive and paralysis seals stealthily. Juzo died because he wasn't aware of those seals being applied on his body. In addition, his chakra reserves and speed can be categorized as rank S. More importantly, he is very cunning and schemes continuously. Even Kisum fell into a tough spot due to him. Don't underestimate him, or you might lose a few hearts. Setsu's words weren't too much of a surprise for the Akatsuki members. After all, Fujin wouldn't have been able to kill Juzo had he been weak. Still, no one was too alarmed as Juzo was one of the weakest members of Akatsuki. Since no one had anything else to add, Pine said, we will be taking the first step towards our goal soon. Our target is Hon, the Jinyakurik of Five Tails. Chapter 389. A sense of freedom. Fujin was unaware of the developments taking place inside Akatsuki. But he wasn't very concerned about them, as Akatsuki didn't have any record of taking revenge for their fallen comrades. He kept thinking about more ways to counter ninjas who could absorb ninjutsu, until Konoha appeared in their sight. Fujin looked at the village and thought, leave it, I'll think about it after I develop it completely. Anyway, this mission wasn't bad. I kind of expected things to go south when Akatsuki got involved. Fortunately, everything went well. I managed to collect some information on Zetsu and Kisum, and got to see Kisum and Mangetsu in action. And the only loss I suffered was that my Fuin Jutsu mastery was revealed to them. But that is fine. Even if they are aware of it, Fuin Jutsu will be a big pain in their ass. Though I also used the wind-style genjutsu, I doubt they would be aware of it. Setsu had probably gone to call Kisum, and we were covered by mist. But even if that stays a secret, it won't be very effective against rank S ninjas. All of them are too sensitive towards such chakra. More importantly, I got an opportunity to fight two very strong ninjas. It showed me a lot of my weaknesses. The new range of vacuum jutsus that I developed, though effective, won't have any chance of killing a rank S ninja, or ninjas close to that level. But it's fine. I created them to cut through Junins who were trained to counter my previous fighting style. And if killing rank S was so easy, then they would have already been dead. Besides, even if they can dodge them, it will create a lot of pressure on them, especially when I use them along with wind-style genjutsu and Fiin Jutsu. They will be incredibly annoyed to face me when I go all out. One small mistake will cost them their lives. A glint appeared in Fujin's eyes as he thought. Of course, my biggest gain was Juzo's death. Though he wasn't a rank S ninja, Juzo was very close to that level, to be able to kill such a ninja, especially in the presence of another rank S ninja. I can be considered as a rank S ninja, a 15-year-old rank S ninja. Hey, who would have thought that the thing that would help me breach the gap between rank A and rank S level would be Fuin Jutsu? When I first arrived in this world, this was the step I wanted to reach. At this level, killing me would be incredibly difficult. I no longer have to worry about offending anyone, or being targeted by someone with malicious intentions. A smile appeared behind Fujin's mask, though he had long gained the ability to face and escape from rank S ninjas. Finally reaching that level gave him an entirely different feeling. It was as if he was no longer bound by anything. As he stepped into Konoha, he felt a sense of freedom like never before. It was a feeling he hadn't experienced in either of his lifetimes. Fujin looked at his teammates and said, I will report to Lord Hoikage. You guys can go back home if you want, but meet me in our room in half an hour for a meeting. Yugo, Fumito and Buniro were a bit surprised by the sudden meeting. They nodded and went their separate ways. Fujin continued forward to Hiruzen's office. He flickered directly outside Hiruzen's office. Hiruzen, who was busy with paperwork, looked above and noticed Fujin. A bit of confusion appeared in his eyes as he thought, he feels a bit different, he said. Come in. At the same time, he looked at the ceiling at the hidden amber guards. They immediately left the room and closed all doors and windows. Hiruzen made a hand seal, activated the seals and said, You're back early. Eagle informed me that you took the rank S mission to the land of hot water. Was the mission successful? Fujin nodded and said, Yes, it was as you calculated. They were ninjas from Kirigujka who were creating trouble. All were eliminated. Hiruzen said, Good, send me the report later. Thanks to his previous record, Hiruzen wasn't surprised that Fujin managed to complete the mission with just his squad. Unfortunately, Hiruzen was completely oblivious to the several shocks he would receive very soon. He went through his drawers and grabbed a scroll. He tossed it to Fujin and said with a gentle smile on his face and a hint of tiredness, "I copied all the details regarding the Flying Thunder God Jutsu in this scroll. It has insights from both the second and fourth Hokage. The rest will be on you. I hope you learn this jutsu." Fujin grabbed the scroll and looked at it. A smile appeared on his face as he thought, "Sweet," even though he fakes a smile and tiredness to invoke sympathy. He is truly magnanimous. Now, how do I break the news to him? Fujin stored the scroll and looked at Hiruzen. He said, "The mission's had a few complications. You might still need to send a couple of squads led by elite Junins to sweep that place." Hiruzen raised an eyebrow and wondered. "You couldn't say that before I gave you the scroll? Why does it feel like I was baited into giving him this scroll? Also, what is this different feeling I am getting from Fujin? It's as if something about him has changed." He asked, "What complications?" Fujin said, "I didn't do the mission and left it to my subordinates to complete it. Yugo acted as the leader. They encountered 25 Kiri ninjas, 5 Junins, and 20 Chunins. All were eliminated by the 3 of them." Hiruzen was surprised to hear that. He had thought that Fujin was the one to cut down most of the Kiri ninjas. He thought, "I didn't expect Yugo and the rest to kill 5 Junins and 20 Chunins by themselves. Such efficiency. They have already exceeded the requirements of becoming an Ambu captain." Fujin continued, "Unfortunately, while they were fighting, Yugo was ambushed by Biwa Juzo, one of the 7 ninja swordsmen of the mist." Hiruzen's eyes widened. He asked, "Has he also gone rogue just in name? And is Yuga fine?" At the same time, he wondered, why was Akatsuki there? Did he encounter Itachi as well? Fujin answered, "I had thought the same as well. But that wasn't the case. Yugo and others are fine. I confronted Juzo while they eliminated the Kiri ninjas. I asked his intentions of fighting us several times, but he only said one thing. He said that he wanted the bounty on my head. From his actions, that seems to be the case." Hiruzen knew that Akatsuki was looking for funds, so he wasn't surprised by what Fujin said. He asked, "All right, how did you manage to get away from him? Also, did he have any allies?" Hiruzen hadn't heard about Itachi in a long while, so he was curious as to how he was doing. At the same time, there was some sorrow inside him due to what they had forced Itachi to do. Fujin nodded and said, "Yeah, he had 2 allies. While we clashed, I sensed a being hiding in the forest and later underground. When I attacked it, it escaped. Some time later, Hoshigaki Kisame arrived to reinforce Juzo. That being who escaped showed itself later. I am not sure what it was. It looked like a Venus flytrap plant. It had a humanoid body inside. One half of it was white while the other half was completely black. It certainly didn't look like a human." Hiruzen analyzed. "That sounds like the Akatsuki member called Zetsu." To Hiruzen's surprise, Fujin tossed him a scroll. Hiruzen caught it and asked, "What is this?" Fujin answered, "It contains Juzo's headless body. I tried to seal his head as well, but it was some distance away from me and Kisame destroyed it." Hiruzen's eyes widened. He instantly realized, "I understand why I am getting this feeling from Fujin." Fujin continued, "I managed to catch Juzo off guard thanks to Fiin Jutsu. He wasn't aware of my expertise in it. Unfortunately, that is leaked now. I clashed with Kisame as well. Our information regarding him is incorrect. This guy is incredibly strong. His chakra is insanely high. He was in a whole different league as compared to Juzo. I didn't see any way of defeating him. Thankfully, I received some aid and managed to escape. Hazuki Mangetsu arrived with 24 hunter ninjas. I am not sure who informed him or why they were there. Anyways, in the fight, Kisame managed to kill 7 hunter ninjas before escaping. I am not sure what Mangetsu did later. But considering that we killed 25 Kiri ninjas and Kisame killed 7 more, they should have retreated from the land of hot water. The squads you send will just have to confirm that they did." Hiruzen nodded and said, "The mission was indeed very complicated. It's good that everything went well." Fujin handed him a few scrolls and said, "These scrolls have the dead bodies of the ninjas my teammates killed. Their memories can still be checked to understand what their mission was." Hiruzen nodded and replied, "All right. Anything else?" Fujin nodded and replied, "Yes. Seeing the performance of Yuzuki Yugo and Yamanaka Fumito in this mission, I recommend both of them be promoted to the Ambu captain ranks. Handabu Nero is growing strong as well, but he still needs some time before he is ready to be promoted to the Ambu captain rank. I will send a report later, highlighting their performance in this mission." Hiruzen had expected Fujin to say that as he had made them complete the mission by themselves. He nodded and replied, "I will have them take an Ambu promotion mission. Good work in ensuring that they become capable enough to reach this level." Fujin replied, I didn't do much. All three of them are highly motivated. They have grown stronger rapidly and are very well versed in ambush strategies and tactics. I'm sure they will become capable captains in the future. As he spoke, Fujin removed his mask. He looked into Hiruzen's eyes and said with a smile on his face, just one more thing, I'm retiring from Anbu. Chapter 390. Hiruzen's headache. Hiruzen was stunned. His eyes widened. In the last few minutes, Fujin had given him one surprise after another, be it the unfamiliar feeling, his team's performance or the involvement of Akatsuki. Juzo's death had shocked him the most, but he had still managed to hold it together. However, the sudden announcement of retirement completely shocked him. It was important to remember that Fujin had just turned 15. It was the age when most joined the Anbu. In all the decades that Hiruzen had been the Hokage, this was the first time anyone asked to retire from Enbu at such a young age. No, Fujin didn't even ask him. Fujin chuckled internally and thought, I don't know why, but seeing Hiruzen rattled is so exciting and satisfying. Hiruzen finally composed himself and asked, What do you mean? Fujin tilted his head and asked in a confused tone. What else can it mean? Hiruzen shook his head and asked, No, I mean, why do you want to retire? Fujin was an integral part of Hiruzen's plans. He wanted Fujin to take over the route or even become the Hokage, depending on the situation. But for that to happen, Fujin needed a lot of accomplishments, and the Anbu was the perfect place to gain such achievements, and to prove himself. Hiruzen even planned to replace his eldest son with Fujin as the commander of the Anbu, to give him more exposure and experience, so Hiruzen didn't want Fujin to leave the Anbu. Taking inspiration from Hiruzen, Fujin faked a sigh full of tiredness and exhaustion, and answered, For the last 3 years, I have been running around the elemental nations killing one guy after another. During this time, I have frequently encountered ninjas who were far stronger than me and would kill me had I made just one mistake. I am exhausted from all this killing and fighting on the edge. My recent clashes, be it with Roshi, Aiga or Kisame, all show me that I need to work on my jutsus a lot, but I barely have any time to train to make myself stronger while the enemies I face keep getting stronger. And between my training and missions, my schedule has become very hectic, leaving me little or no time to rest. So, I want to retire from the Anbu and take a long break to learn new techniques and rest my mind. Hiruzen was speechless. He thought, hectic. He is the only Anbu who regularly asks for vacations. I just gave him a 3-month-long vacation, and I rarely gave him a mission that required killing in the last year. Don't tell me he is complaining about not getting enough time to meditate in the training rooms. After nearly emptying all our wind crystal reserves, he is complaining about it. Hiruzen said, If you quit, you won't be able to train in the Anbu training facility. Fujin asked in a pleading tone. Not even for a little while, Grandpa? Hiruzen said in a strict tone. No, the tactics he could use as a kid had long lost their effect on Hiruzen. Fujin sighed and said, That's unfortunate, but I expected as much. He thought, the wind crystals don't have any effect on me anymore. As for fire and earth, my affinity for them isn't very impressive. So the absorption speed is too slow for it to be of much help. So the elemental crystals are no longer of any help to me. Hiruzen was surprised. He analyzed. So it wasn't because he wanted more crystals, but why does he want to retire? It can't be because of exhaustion. Kakashi took missions non-stop for years without needing a break. So did I when I was younger. In fact, there has never been an elite Junin in Konoha who retired due to the workload. He asked, Why don't you just take training breaks and continue being in the Anbu? Hiruzen sighed internally and thought, Why does everyone keep giving me headaches? This kid barely ever socializes with anyone. He has almost no connections. I was planning to give him Anbu ninjas who are already ready to become Anbu captains and increase his influence through them. But he wants to quit after influencing just 2. How will I even increase his reputation enough to make him a possible candidate for Hokage? Hiruzen couldn't directly tell Fujin that he wanted to raise him to become the next Hokage. After all, he couldn't guarantee that Fujin would become the Hokage. Not to mention, telling something like that or even hinting it would create various complications. So Fujin was unaware of Hiruzen's plans to make him the Hokage. In fact, the thought of competing for the Hokage position didn't even cross his mind. Despite his impressive talent, Fujin had no connection to any of the Hokage. The first and second Hokage were brothers. The third Hokage was a student of the second Hokage. The fourth Hokage was Jiraiya's student who was the third Hokage's student. In the future, the 5th Hokage would be the student of the 3rd Hokage, the 6th Hokage would be a student of the 4th Hokage, while the 7th Hokage would be the student of the 6th Hokage, and the son of the 4th Hokage. Fujin didn't have any such connections. Though he took advantage of Hiruzen's weird obsession to become every kid's grandpa, he was well aware that their relationship wasn't as deep as Hiruzen's relations with his students. Of course, the most important factor was that Fujin was aware of the future. Had Hiruzen known how strong Naruto and Sasuke would grow in the future, he wouldn't have bothered spending so much effort on nurturing Fujin. So Fujin was in a weird spot. At the present time, due to his young age, he had no way of becoming the Hokage. If anything were to happen to Hiruzen, both the Sanins and Kakashi had a much higher chance of becoming Hokage than him. His name might not even be brought up by the council, and even Shikaku would be preferred over him, despite being weaker than him. Even if he kept becoming stronger and gained a lot of achievements, 6 years later, Naruto's reputation would reach a level far beyond any other ninja in history, so Fujin didn't see much hope of becoming the Hokage. Even if he did, he wasn't particularly interested in the post. Though he did see some benefits of becoming the Hokage, such as getting access to all the forbidden jutsus, holding on to that post for a long time was something he wasn't interested in. Being a Hokage was a selfless and thankless job, while he did enjoy playing mind games. He wasn't particularly interested in doing that all the time. After all, it was fun to do so when Hiruzen and Shikaku had to deal with all the consequences. It won't be the same when he would have to deal with such situations on a regular basis and clear up messes that others create. So on this topic, Fujin and Hiruzen weren't on the same page, and both were completely unaware of each other's thoughts. Fujin didn't think much and replied, "No, I think I am done with the Ambu." "Sorry, Grandpa." Hiruzen was lost for words. His last offer would have allowed Fujin to use the training rooms as much as he wanted. And still, Fujin rejected him. He understood that Fujin had already made up his mind. He sighed and said, "All right, let me know if you change your mind." Fujin nodded and said, "I will, thank you, Grandpa." He left the room and shut the door behind him. Hiruzen let out another sigh and muttered, "They are all the same," he thought. "The weird feeling I got from Fujin earlier is the same one I got from Jiraiya, Tsunade, Orochimaru and Minato. By killing Juzo, he should have understood that he is a rank S ninja. This realization brings about a change in mindset that is hard to determine." When Juo reached this level, he left Konoha and began touring around the world to fulfill his prophecy. When Orochimaru did, he began doing experiments. Tsunade didn't change much on the surface, but she became willful enough to try to forcefully revamp Konoha's medical ninjas in the middle of a war. By comparison, Minato didn't change much other than becoming very confident in himself. I never imagined that Fujin would reach this level at such a young age, and the changes he would experience would lead him to quitting Ambo. According to my estimates, I had thought that he would have needed at least 4 to 5 more years before reaching this level. That would have been enough for me to increase his reputation by several levels in Konoha. But now, Hiruzen had a massive headache. Chapter 391, a new chapter in Fujin's life. Hiruzen grabbed his smoking pipe and got up from his seat. He looked outside the window, staring at the Hokage faces as he thought, "This brat is indeed good at giving headaches. No wonder Shikaku was so annoyed by him. So many plans I had made. All are useless now." His mind rapidly calculated what he could do next. After a few minutes, he concluded, "Without him being in the Ambu, I can't increase his influence among the younger generation. And from his words, it looks like he doesn't intend to take missions unless they are compulsory to take. The only way I can increase his reputation now is if I tell everyone what his achievements are." But a frown appeared on Hiruzen's face as he continued thinking. "But he wants to keep all his achievements a secret. Exposing them could make him resent me, and I can't casually say that he is the spectral swordsman without facing a diplomatic disaster." Even though everyone knew and believed that Fujin was the spectral swordsman, the smaller countries around Konoha didn't act against Konoha. They were already facing threats from other major villages, and if they offended Konoha as well, they would face a lot of problems. So they wanted to bury the whole thing as much as Konoha did. As long as the spectral swordsman didn't act openly against them, they wouldn't say a word. But if Hiruzen was to openly admit that Fujin was the spectral swordsman, then those smaller countries would have no choice but to act against Konoha and restrict their ties with Konoha due to pressure from their own nobles and ninjas. So Hiruzen couldn't do that. He sighed again and muttered, the only way for him to become popular quickly now would be a war. As long as he kills several ninjas at Juzo's level in a war or kills hundreds of enemy ninjas in an open battle, his reputation would increase in no time at all. But until such a war happens, he won't be able to compete with Kakashi for my seat even if he becomes stronger than Kakashi. Leave it. Until a few years ago, I hadn't expected Fujin to become so strong. By killing Juzo, he has pretty much announced that he is a rank S ninja. As long as he doesn't completely slack off, he will reach around my level by the time he grows up. Having such a ninja is very beneficial for Konoha, irrespective of how reputed he is or which post he has, and with his strength, gaining reputation won't take a long time once he decides to build some. Hiruzen decided to stop worrying about Fujin. He knew that strength was far more important than reputation. Though Fujin foiled his plans by quitting Ambo, Hiruzen could still make use of his strength when needed. In fact, he had already thought of one method to increase Fujin's fame within Konoha immediately. He deactivated the seals and got back to work. As for the person who had just given Hiruzen a lot of headaches, he was chilling in his amber room, waiting for his teammates. Since he had nothing to do, he wondered, why was Hiruzen so desperate to keep me in the ambu? My first guess was that he just wanted someone who could keep taking missions non-stop like how I was doing and how Kakashi was doing before me. But that last offer gave me a lot of advantages. To take long training breaks while in Ambu would have allowed me to go through the reserves of elemental crystals. Did he have any other intentions? Fujin thought for a bit but couldn't think of any good reason. So he just kept thinking while waiting for his subordinates to arrive. In a few minutes, Yugo, Fumito and Buniro arrived and saw Fujin sitting without his mask and in deep thought. Fujin looked up and noticed them. He smiled and said, "You guys are finally here. Sit down. I have a few important announcements." Yugo and Fumito immediately guessed what it would have been about. After all, their last mission was a bit strange. They immediately sat down. As they expected, Fujin said, "We have been working as a team for the last year. During this time, I have carefully observed your progress, and I am very impressed by it. Especially you, Buniro. Your abilities and mission awareness have improved several times over the last year. You are now a full-fledged Ambu ninja. However, you still need more experience and still need to improve the speed and scale of your wind and water jutsus." Buniro nodded and replied, "Thank you, Captain. I will keep working on it." Fujin looked at Yugo and Fumito and said, "Both of you were already very close to the Ambu captain level a year ago. I have judged that both of you are ready to be the Ambu captain right now. I have already talked with Lord Heikage. Both of you will be given Ambu promotion missions soon." Yugo and Fumito were immediately excited by the news. They said in unison, "Thank you, Captain." Fujin nodded, looked at Buniro and said, "Don't be discouraged. I'm sure you'll be able to take this mission in less than 2 years. Buniro replied, "I understand, Captain. Don't worry. I will keep training under you." However, Fujin shook his head and said, "Our team will be disbanded. I am quitting Ambu. Eagle will assign you a new squad." Fujin's words shocked his 3 subordinates. Just like Hiruzen, they didn't see any signs of Fujin retiring from the Ambu. In fact, they had the front row seats as they saw Fujin fight with opponents who were famed throughout the world and create one trouble after another. So this sudden announcement caught them off guard. Buniro asked, "Why?" Fujin shrugged and replied, "I had some time to think about what I wanted to do during our training break. After thinking for a while, I decided to quit." All 3 were left speechless and looked at Fujin with a deadpan expression. Though Fujin had answered, it was equivalent to not saying anything. Fujin chuckled and said, "Don't worry, take care of yourselves. Next time, I won't be around to back you up." Everyone nodded, knowing that they won't be meeting very frequently in the future. Yugo, Fumito and Buniro asked all the queries they had. Fujin answered all of them patiently. Round half an hour later, no one had anything more to say. Fujin said, "Though we won't meet up much in the future, you all know where I live. Feel free to visit if you need anything. Good luck with your future missions." Yuga, Fumito and Buniro said their farewells and thanked Fujin once again. All 3 took their leave. As he left, Buniro thought, "I was dreaming about becoming Ambu captain before I turned 16. To think that Fujin would quit Ambu at my age. Did he quit because the Ambu missions weren't challenging him?" Buniro had a lot of excitement in following Fujin's footsteps and becoming an Ambu captain. But he wasn't sure about it anymore. However, he still had the determination to become as strong as Fujin. Fujin packed up all his stuff from the room and thought, 3 years. I spent 3 years in the Ambu. During this period, my strength has increased from Junin level to rank S. Though fighting other Rankis ninjas will be fun, I have some things to do before that. Fujin left the Amber headquarters and walked on the streets as he decided, now that I am rank S and have also become a Fuin Jutsu Grandmaster, I can start implementing my ideas one by one. How successful I am in implementing them will indicate how much farther I can go. Once I am successful, I can begin taking advantage of the future events that I know will happen, even though I did mess up with Suna badly, which could have some effect on Konoha Crush. The events regarding Akatsuki shouldn't be influenced much, though I did kill Juzo, he was supposed to die anyway. Kisum should join up with Itachi, unless the one who killed Juzo can also kill Kisum, it won't have any effect on their activities, anyways. For now, Fujin looked at the Ikiruka ramen stall and entered. He thought, though I don't need to eat due to the soldier pill, there is no harm in eating to treat myself. As soon as he entered, I noticed him and said, Fujin, come in, what do you want to eat? Fujin sat down and replied, just the usual 3 bowls, said, coming right up. She immediately went to assist her father in making the ramen. Within a few minutes the first bowl was ready, delivered it and Fujin began eating. Fujin ate, enjoying the delicious taste and the peace and tranquility. Suddenly, a certain someone came running into the stall and sat on the stool next to Fujinus and shouted, 2 miso ramens for me, chapter 392, easy mode. Heard Naruto's shout and said, wait for a few minutes Naruto, I'll prepare it right away. She and Tachi got to work while Fujin enjoyed his meal and Naruto impatiently waited for his. A few minutes later, brought out 2 bowls and placed them in front of Naruto and Fujin. Naruto immediately said loudly, thank you, and dived into his bowl. Despite sounding happy, could clearly make out the annoyance in Naruto's voice. She asked, did something happen in the academy, Naruto? Naruto replied, Lich, Iruka-sensei failed me once again. I have to keep studying until next year. Consoled him and said, oh don't worry Naruto, I am sure you will pass with flying colors next year. Naruto replied enthusiastically. Of course I will become the Hokage, believe it. Smiled noticing that Naruto wasn't depressed. Suddenly, she remembered that Fujin was sitting next to Naruto, and realized, and now that I think about it, I don't think Fujin and Naruto have ever met. That's weird, both of them come here so frequently, it is strange that they never showed up at the same time. Despite finding it odd, didn't dwell on it for long. After all, her mind couldn't comprehend the fact that Fujin purposefully avoided Naruto until that day. She cheerfully said, Fujin, you haven't met with Naruto yet, right? Fujin looked up at her and asked in a questioning tone, Naruto. He looked at Naruto sitting beside him and asked him. Naruto, who was busy eating, immediately looked up as he realized that was talking about him. He looked back at Fujin who was looking at him. Introduced Fujin by saying, Naruto, he is Fujin. He is a very strong ninja. Though didn't know much about Fujin, she knew that he graduated at 10 and became a chunin at 11, though there were a few other ninjas who became chunin at that age. Their number was very low, so despite not knowing Fujin's real strength, her words were spot on. Hearing that Fujin was very strong from Iam's mouth, Naruto was surprised. He looked back at Fujin to see that he was still staring at him without saying anything. He introduced himself, I am Uzumaki Naruto, I will become the Hokage, believe it. Fujin replied, the Hokage, huh? Naruto looked into Fujin's eyes, noticed it and suddenly became nervous. She thought, ugh, I forgot that most villagers avoid Naruto for some reason. I hope Fujin isn't one of them. Tachi also looked at Fujin. Though he liked Fujin, he didn't want anyone to mistreat Naruto. Fujin stared at Naruto just like the rest of the villagers. However, Naruto noticed some differences. The most important difference was that Fujin's gaze wasn't cold. Naruto was surprised and wondered, though he is staring at me, it doesn't feel like he hates me or wants me to disappear. But what is this look? Naruto had never seen someone looking at him in this manner, so he didn't understand that Fujin's gaze was full of curiosity and amusement. As someone who had seen Naruto several times, it was natural for Fujin to be curious towards him. Though he has observed Naruto several times, this was the first time he was interacting with him. This curiosity was something that no other person in Konoha had. As for the amusement part, Fujin couldn't help but think, in my previous world, we debated several times about who was the best manipulator in Naruto. The normal choices for the same would be Danzo, Orochimaru, or even Black Zetsu at times, but they don't come anywhere close to Hiruzen. How the hell does someone, whose existence is not acknowledged, who has to hear things terrible enough to leave mental trauma on a daily basis for years, and who is pretty much hated by everyone, want to do nothing but look after and care for the very people who put him through such torture, and be willing to give up his life for them. Fujin couldn't make any sense of it. He could only marvel at how capable Hiruzen was. He even wondered whether the reason Hiruzen kept Naruto in such circumstances was to fuel his dream of becoming the Hokage even further. However, even if that was the case, Fujin didn't agree with the method. He chuckled and said, "Sure, and I will become the god of this world. Believe it." Fujin's reply left Ayam-Tachi and Naruto speechless. None of them had expected such a reply. Soon a smile appeared on Tachi's face, and Ayam began giggling. Naruto's face immediately became red in embarrassment. He immediately jumped from his stool and shouted, "Don't mock me, I will become the Hokage, believe it." Fujin chuckled and asked, "Do you know of a Hokage that failed the graduation exam?" Naruto immediately became a bit nervous and argued back, "No, but I only failed in the clone jutsu. I can perform the substitution and the transformation jutsu perfectly." Fujin still maintained a sly smile and asked, "Do you know of any Hokage that know only 2 jutsus? Lord Third is said to know every single jutsu in Konoha." Getting constantly berated by Fujin annoyed Naruto. He slammed his hand on the table, while claiming, "I will learn even more jutsus they." Suddenly, his eyes moved towards the table. His hand hit his ramen bowl, causing it to move and fall. His eyes widened in horror as he saw the ramen bowl turn over and his precious ramen falling towards the ground. However, suddenly, it felt like a miracle took place. The ramen, which was falling towards the ground, suddenly stopped. Winds flowed around the falling ramen and the bowl. Naruto, Ayam and Tachi saw in astonishment as all the falling ramen went back into the bowl and the bowl moved back to the table and floated around an inch above the table. Slowly, the bowl landed on the table, and the winds moving around it dispersed. The entire room was quiet due to the sudden display. None of them had ever seen something like that. Naruto turned his attention towards Fujin and thought, "How did he do that? I haven't even seen Iruka-sensei do something like this." To see someone who just said his dream was impossible do something so crazy shocked him. However, his shock soon turned into excitement. His eyes almost sparkled as he said in excitement, "That was so cool." "How did you do that?" Fujin replied, "It's a basic application of wind nature manipulation." Naruto exclaimed, "Wind nature manipulation? That sounds cool. Can you teach it to me?" Fujin raised an eyebrow and asked, "Teach you?" He continued eating noodles as he said, "It might be basic, but it is still very complicated. To learn, you will have to train for hours daily for months. Do you think you can focus on training that long?" Naruto was surprised. This wasn't the first time he had asked anyone to teach him jutsus. He had asked nearly all teachers in the academy and had also bugged Hiruzen when he met him. But this was the first time his request wasn't denied right away. Naruto said, "Of course I can. I will train non-stop until I learn it. Believe it." Fujin asked, "Do you know where training ground 23 is?" Naruto replied, "No, but I can find it in no time, believe it." Fujin said, "All right, show up there at 5 in the morning tomorrow. If you can learn how to control the wind as I can, then I'll believe that you can become the Hokage." Naruto was immediately elated. It was the first time anyone had agreed to teach him. He immediately shouted in excitement, "I will be there and learn it in no time. Believe it." Naruto's reactions were completely like Fujin expected. All his words to Naruto were well measured. He first made Naruto agitated by saying that his dream was impossible, then blew his mind with the sudden display, and finally agreed to Naruto's request of teaching him and gave him a way of making him convinced Fujin that he could become the Hokage. As a result, Fujin's impression in Naruto's eyes skyrocketed, considering how few people treated Naruto well. Fujin's favorability immediately rose near the top in Naruto's eyes. Fujin sighed internally and thought, "This is too easy." After engaging in mind games with Hiruzen, trying to manipulate Naruto is like going from insane difficulty mode to baby mode. He is lucky that I have no ill intentions. Fujin couldn't help but wonder, now that I think about it, doesn't Hiruzen always target little kids? Most of his Will of Fire speeches are given in the academy. He has influenced Naruto since he was young. The same could be said about Itachi. If Naruto and Itachi were older like me, would they have fallen for his manipulations? Tachi and Ayam weren't aware of what was going through Fujin's mind. They just smiled. Though neither were ninjas, both were happy to see Naruto being treated well, having interacted with Fujin for so long. They knew that he wouldn't harm Naruto or leave him hanging. Tsuchi said, "Your ramen is getting cold, Naruto. Eat it quickly." Naruto immediately began eating while Tsuchi brought out the last 2 bowls of ramen. Chapter 393, Confrontation. Fujin finished up his bowls of ramen before Naruto. He got up and said, "I'll be waiting for you tomorrow morning. Don't be late." Naruto quickly swallowed the noodles and said, "I will be there on time. Believe it." Fujin nodded and left. As he left, he heard Naruto talking to Ayame in excitement, claiming that he would be able to control winds like Fujin in no time. Naruto seemed to have already forgotten about failing the graduation exam. Fujin ignored it and began walking home. He sighed and thought, "I forgot how much of a punk Naruto was. Even though it's understandable considering his situation, it'll be rather annoying to deal with all the time. Should I curtail it?" Fujin thought for a bit before deciding, "Leave it. It's a thankless job and will require a lot of time and effort. I'll just have him act properly in front of me and compensate for that by filling his head with more prank ideas, as long as I'm not the one he annoys. I don't care. Besides, considering the amount of trauma he has, it will be better for him to let some of it out through pranks rather than bottling it all up." Fujin then began thinking about what to train Naruto in, since Hiruzen had handed him the Flying Thunder God peacefully. He didn't intend to create much trouble for him. He thought, "Training Naruto, it is something I have contemplated for a long time." He recalled his analysis. The advantage of doing so is very simple. Naruto's stocks are set to explode in the future. And no one, including Naruto himself, knows about this. Investing in him at this time, when very few others have, will make him feel indebted to me and make him take my side or support me as long as I don't do anything that is totally against his morals. No. Even if I do something evil, he will still fight for my forgiveness. So, if some of my future plans go horribly wrong and put me in a dangerous situation or make me an enemy of the elemental nations, I will always have a path of retreating, regardless if things happen just as in the canon. There are only benefits in doing this. Even if things don't pan out the same, having a rank S ninja that I can easily influence is something invaluable. However, there is a big problem with this. If I train Naruto, and if that helps him become stronger quicker than the canon timeline, then the story could change in ways that I might not be able to calculate, costing my advantage of future knowledge, and the changes start at a very basic level. For instance, if my training somehow makes him competent enough to learn the clone jutsu, then he will graduate, and Ms. Kuki won't be able to make him steal the scroll. That would mean that Naruto wouldn't learn the multi-shadow clone jutsu until the sun rises from the west and Kakashi or Jiraiya decides to teach him the jutsu that is tailor-made for him, and I have no idea how much that would impact his ability to fight or even survive in his future fights. Luckily, this change is easy to see and fix. I can just teach him the multi-shadow clone jutsu myself as a gift for graduating. Though I will lose my chance to sneak a peek at the contents of the Forbidden Scroll, I doubt the scroll he stole was the actual Forbidden Scroll. There's no way the Hiruzen I know would be this careless, but regardless, such changes will happen in the future. At least the events during the Chunin exams will change. Fortunately, the major events like Akatsuki's movements shouldn't be affected by the increase in his strength. Suna and Oto's invasion might be affected, but that's more due to me rather than Naruto. Fujin let out a sigh and muttered, "So many complications. What do you want?" As Fujin walked, he reached a street that was completely deserted. In an instant, a masked ninja, wearing the Ambu outfit, appeared behind Fujin. The masked ninja heard Fujin's question and said in a monotonous tone, "Stay away from Usamoki Naruto." Without turning around to face him, Fujin asked in a plain tone, "Why?" The ninja answered, "Lord Hokage's orders." Fujin replied, "That's funny, I don't recall him passing such orders, so why don't you stop beating around the bush and say the real reason?" The ninja was surprised. He didn't expect someone to actually question him back. After all, very few ever questioned the Anbu. He said, "Yuka." However, Fujin cut him off and said, "I thought Root was dissolved. What are you doing keeping an eye on the citizens of Konoha?" Fujin was very well aware of Anbu's operating style. During the last 3 years, he had gone on combined missions with several teams. So it was very easy for him to realize that the ninja behind him wasn't from Anbu. The Root ninja was shocked once again. Not only did the youngster in front of him not obey him, but he also revealed his identity. Not knowing how to handle the situation, he released a bit of his killing intent at Fujin and said, "Do as you are told." For the first time, Fujin turned his head and looked into the eyes of the Root ninja. In the next second, the Root ninja immediately jumped away. His eyes widened in shock and disbelief as sweat appeared behind his mask. He wondered, "Who is he? And how many people did he kill? Instead of backing out, Fujin had unleashed his own killing intent at the Root Ninja. As someone who had spent the better part of the last 3 years killing a large number of ninjas and nobles, the amount of people he killed far exceeded what the Root Ninja had. Though Fujin couldn't compare to Juzo in this regard, a Root Ninja, who wasn't even at the Junin level, wasn't his match. Since the entire killing intent was focused on him, the Root Ninja couldn't endure it. He felt that he would lose his life if he didn't move away from Fujin. Fujin muttered, "The next time you or any other Root Ninja sneaks up on me, I won't be polite." Without looking back, Fujin walked away. The Root Ninja was still in shock. It was his first time seeing someone from Konoha who had no regard for either the Anbu or the Root. He wondered, who is that guy? All ninjas are very polite towards the Anbu. If they know that I am from Root, they become even more polite and slightly fearful. But he directly threatened me and other Root Ninjas. He quickly retreated and rushed towards the underground Root base. Fujin ignored him and continued walking home. He thought, "That's weird. I thought all Root Ninjas would be aware of me, even if Danzo didn't tell them. Do they not read the bingo book?" That said, he felt quite weak and was probably only at the Chunin level. Maybe Danzo kept him busy for some mission. Regardless, Danzo has gone completely silent. I had expected him to do something after spying on me, though I didn't sense anyone later. I am sure that he still kept an eye on me, but it's been nearly 3 months, and I also went out on a mission. It is strange that he hasn't tried anything. The main reason why I was so provocative in this little interaction is to see what Danzo would do now. If he has some malicious intentions, then this would provide him a good excuse to take action. Even if he doesn't take any action, I'll be able to get some clues on his intentions. Fujin was very interested in seeing Danzo's schemes. If Danzo hadn't tried spying on him, Fujin would have ignored his existence until it was the right time. But since Danzo displayed some intentions against him, Fujin knew that just waiting passively would give all initiative to Danzo. Once he ascertained Danzo's intentions, he would have a better idea of how to proceed forward. Fujin reached his home and entered the basement. He finally took out the scroll and opened it, as he muttered in excitement. Flying Thunder God Jutsu. Finally, I can learn it. He immediately began reading all the information regarding it. While Fujin began studying, a figure appeared in the underground base of Root. He was the same Root Ninja who tried warning Fujin. He went straight to Danzo and after getting permission, entered it. He bowed respectfully and said in a hurry, "Danzo-sama, there is an issue. A shinobi interacted with Uzumaki Naruto and promised to train him. I warned him and asked him to stay away from Naruto, but he refused to do so." Danzo was surprised. He asked, "Didn't you threaten him?" Sweat gathered behind the Root Ninja's mask as he recalled how his threat went. Chapter 394, A Flying Thunder God. The Root Ninja nervously reported, "I tried, but he arrogantly claimed that the Hokage didn't tell him to stay away from Uzumaki Naruto. Then he somehow recognized that I was from the Root and asked what I was doing keeping an eye on the citizens of Konoha. When I tried to threaten him, he unleashed his killing intent and forced me to retreat. I'm not sure who it was, but that ninja has killed a lot of ninjas." Danzo was surprised. He wondered, who did he encounter, and since when did someone start threatening Root Ninjas? He asked, "Who was it?" The Root Ninja replied, "I didn't identify him, but when he was inside the Ikuraka ramen shop, I overheard that he was called Fujin." Danzo's eyes immediately widened before going back to their usual size. He wondered, Suzuki Fujin, hasn't he gone to the Land of Waterfall? The 2 squads I sent to the Land of Earth even made Igawaka send Kitsuchi and a few dozen Junins to set a trap for him there. Why is he still here? The Root Ninja was surprised to not receive any response from Danzo. He looked up and asked, "Danzo-sama?" Danzo replied, "I will look into it. For now, stay away from him. Continue spying on Uzumaki Naruto, but maintain distance." The Root Ninja nodded and left. Unlike his steady voice, Danzo's mind was in a mess. He calmed himself down and analyzed. Did Tiger make a mistake in identifying him? No, that's unlikely. So why is Suzuki Fujin back in Konoha? Or could it be possible that he never left? Danzo analyzed for a few minutes and concluded, no, he should have left the village, otherwise Torun would have informed me. The mistake I made should be in assuming the mission he took. He should have taken a different mission that allowed him to return so quickly. But which mission did he take? While Danzo was aware of the mission issued by the daimyo of the Land of Hot Water, he wasn't informed that Fujin's squad had taken that mission. Hiruzen and Eagle didn't have any reason to inform him, and they continued creating a strong squad to send to that mission, in spite of the fact that Fujin's squad had taken the mission. So Danzo was completely clueless. He continued thinking, I will find that out later. For now, the important question is why he wants to teach the Nine-Tails Jinwikaric. Naruto was someone who Danzo wanted to control. Unfortunately, Hiruzen never allowed him that. However, Danzo used the political situation in Konoha and Hiruzen's worries perfectly to ensure that no one else managed to gain control over Naruto either. For Fujin to suddenly take an interest in Naruto baffled Danzo. He analyzed. At that ramen shop, Torun said that Fujin visits it frequently, and so does Uzumaki Naruto. That is the only common point between the two of them. But if that's the case, why did he wait for so long before taking an interest in him? And what gives him the confidence to root for that boy? He realized. It feels like I am missing something. Something important should have happened in these last 3-4 days. I need to gather sufficient information to understand what the situation is. Only then I can decide what move to make. Danzo immediately understood that he was missing a lot of information. So despite Fujin's provocation, he decided to not respond and decided to wait until he had a better picture of the situation. Inside his basement, Fujin had gone through all the information inside the scroll. He thought, of all the scrolls I have seen in this world, this one is the most detailed one. It contains the optimal method of learning this jutsu. It contains a ridiculous amount of theory on space-time ninjutsu. It also contains Tobiramo's research leading to the creation of this jutsu and how Minato improved upon it. And despite saying that he doesn't have any talent in this field, Hiruzen has still added his thoughts and tips in this scroll. Fujin took a deep breath and recalled the method of learning the Flying Thunder God. He summarized. The process of learning the Flying Thunder God jutsu is divided into several steps, and each of these steps is extremely difficult. The first step is learning to make the seal required for this jutsu. In terms of complexity, this seal can be considered to be at a higher level than the four-symbol seal. This means that if the ninja isn't a grandmaster in Fuin jutsu or close to that level, it will be impossible to even complete the first step of this jutsu. However, there is one shortcut Minato created so that seal masters who show some affinity to space-time ninjutsu could learn this seal as well. Of course, its effect isn't as good as learning the seal yourself. Regardless, for me, this step should be the easiest. The second step is sensing the space coordinates of the seals I create. Sensing space coordinates is different from normal sensing. I can't use my chakra field. Instead, I will have to use a space-time sensing technique to sense its location. This step is very difficult. According to what Hiruzen wrote, he failed at this step. Almost everyone who tried learning the Flying Thunder God jutsu fails at this stage. This step shows whether you have an affinity for space-time ninjutsu or not. I suspect that the reason why Genma and the other two were selected by Minato is that they should have shown some talent in this step. Though there aren't grandmasters in Fuin jutsu, the scroll states that Minato developed a simpler version of this jutsu. The Thunder God formation technique. I suspect that he somehow created the seals himself for the three of them to sense. It's likely that Minato tested every eligible ninja and found just the three of them. Or perhaps there were more but they couldn't complete the last step. Sigh, I hope I am able to complete this step. Fortunately, Minato made this step a bit simpler by improving the structure of the seal slightly. It decreases the time needed to sense the seals and makes sensing over longer distances easier, according to what Hiruzen added. It was only due to these improvements done by Minato that Konoha began discovering more ninjas who have talent for space-time ninjutsu. The third and final step is the main step. After sensing the seal, I have to move to that location. It sounds a bit similar to the summoning jutsu. Or rather, the reverse summoning jutsu. Basically, I have to be summoned to the location of the seal. Only, there is one big issue. During reverse summoning, the one who does the reverse summoning uses his or her chakra to do so. But here, there is no one to do that at the seal. Another issue is that reverse summoning needs a lot of chakra. To do that a few times will be fine. But doing that hundreds or even thousands of times repeatedly, like how Minato would do, would use up all the chakra in an instant. The initial form of this jutsu that Tobirama created actually used this concept. Minato's Thunder God formation technique also uses this principle. So, the initial form of this jutsu couldn't actually be considered teleportation. It was a long-distance movement jutsu that Tobirama created by using numerous existing concepts and techniques. Though it was still remarkable, it wasn't very usable in battle. Understanding the drawbacks, Tobirama improved this step to actually moving through space-time and arriving at the location of the seal in an instant. This consumes far less chakra and is much faster, making it viable to use in combat. However, it is far more difficult to learn. Regardless, as long as I succeed in step 2, even if I fail in this step, I could still copy the reverse summoning trick and use this jutsu for traveling long distances, of course. If I manage to master step 3 as well. A wide grin appeared on Fujin's face. His speed was already ridiculously high. Apart from the top-tier ninjas, no one could keep up with him at his current level. His vacuum jutsus and Fian jutsu further restricted his opponents. However, if he were to add the Flying Thunder God jutsu to his arsenal, he would become the fastest ninja alive in a heartbeat. Even the fourth Reikage and Obito would struggle to keep up with him. Fujin calmed himself and muttered, "I need to learn this first. I can get excited later." In an instant, 100 shadow clones appeared in the basement. Everyone began learning the Flying Thunder God seal. While Fujin occupied himself in learning the Flying Thunder God seal, Shikaku entered Hiruzen's office and asked, "What is the matter this time?" Hiruzen looked at Shikaku and said seriously, "Fujin took the mission in the Land of Hot Water with his squad. He returned some time ago." Shikaku immediately had a dark expression. He sighed and thought, "I will miss my next few months' sleep." Chapter 395, A Seat on the Council. Hiruzen noticed Shikaku's expressions. Though he was amused, his mind was still occupied by Fujin's resignation. He thought, without Fujin creating trouble, Shikaku will become lazy again. I need to think of something to keep him busy now. Shikaku muttered, "Say it. What upheaval did that boy cause this time?" Sorrow could be heard in Shikaku's tone. It was as if someone was about to steal his most precious belongings, and he could do nothing but see it happening with his eyes. Hiruzen looked at his amber guards, who immediately left the room and locked all the doors and windows. Hiruzen activated the seals and said he encountered the Akatsuki organization, as well as the Mizukage faction during the mission. Shikaku was puzzled. He asked, "What was that mercenary organization doing there? Aren't they active in the West?" Hiruzen replied, "Fujin couldn't figure that out. Our only guess right now is that they received a mission in the Land of Hot Water and encountered them fighting. Regardless, Biwa Juzo wanted to collect his bounty and was killed by Fujin." Shikoku was shocked. He asked, "He killed Juzo?" Hiruzen nodded. Shikoku immediately became serious as he analyzed the implications. He said, "Killing Juzo will imply that Fujin is a rank S ninja, and he is merely 15 years old." Shikoku was stunned, knowing all the shit Fujin pulled over the last year. Shikoku expected Fujin to reach that stage, but he didn't expect him to reach it so quickly. Hiruzen nodded and said, his victory wasn't a fluke. He also found out more information. Hiruzen informed Shikaku about Fujin's analysis of Kisame and mentioned Zetsu's abilities. He even told him about the actions of the Mizukage faction. Shikaku analyzed everything thoroughly and said, "The Mizukage faction is getting desperate. If the fourth Mizukage falls, then their faction will collapse in no time. Kisame's power is a surprise. But we didn't hear much about him after the end of the last war. For his strength to rise significantly over the last decade, though difficult, isn't impossible. That plant-like creature sounds like it will be good at spying and infiltration. We may need to upgrade our barriers considering that it was able to hide within Fujin's chakra field. The more important question is, would the mercenary organization retaliate?" Hiruzen shook his head and answered, "Unlikely. It's not a hidden village, so they don't have the same sense of camaraderie, and this isn't the first time one of them has been killed. So it is very unlikely." Shikoku didn't have much information about Akatsuki's movements and actions. He was worried about such high-level ninjas ambushing Konoha ninjas on the field, but since Hiruzen wasn't worried, Shikoku stopped thinking about it. However, he was puzzled. He asked, "Everything sounds well. Why did you call me?" Shikaku thought, "I was expecting a lot of work, but so far, he has only given me good news. The Mizukage faction will retreat from the Land of Hot Water. One deadly rogue ninja is dead, and no one will avenge him. And Konoha has a new and young rank S ninja. This would make the village's position very stable. Did he call me here to just give me good news?" Hiruzen sighed and said, "Fujin resigned from the Ambu. He will be taking a long break to train and rest." Shikaku's eyes widened. He exclaimed in shock, "He resigned?" Almost immediately, his shock changed into delight. He thought, "Fujin retired from Ambu and will take a long break. Unbelievable. He indeed called me to give me good news." Fujin had been a huge headache for Shikaku. In fact, Suna was still sending ninjas to the fire capital occasionally. In addition, the situation with Igawatka was continuously getting tense ever since Fujin and Roshi clashed. Though nothing happened on the ground, the tensions always existed, so Shikaku was always very busy. He had to move around Konoha ninjas several times and had to recalibrate Konoha's strategy very frequently. Considering Fujin's age, Shikaku had mentally prepared himself to be continuously tortured for at least a decade. This sudden news was like an unexpected blessing for him. With Fujin no longer taking missions actively, Shikoku felt like a large amount of pressure was lifted from his shoulders. Hirizen said, "You could at least act to not be so pleased." Shikoku coughed and said, "I am just happy that our village has a new rank S ninja. It will make planning much simpler in the future. Kakashi and Gai should be close to or at the same level as Fujin as well. In a few more years, Konoha will regain the influence lost due to Minato's death and Orochimaru's betrayal." Hiruzen nodded. What Shikaku said was completely true. He had increased the number of Konoha ninjas as well as the number of Junins aggressively in the last few years. Once Konoha gained 3 new rank S ninjas, it would bring them closer to the strength they had during the previous war. However, he clearly knew that it wasn't the reason for Shikaku's happiness. Hiruzen said, "I called you here because I need your opinion on a matter." Shikaku became serious and asked, "What is it?" Hiruzen said, "With Fujin no longer a part of Ambo, I can't use my previous method to increase his reputation." Shikoku recalled the conversation he had with Hiruzen a year ago. He nodded. Hiruzen continued, "So I have decided to do that using 2 methods. The first one is promoting him to Elite Junin officially. That shouldn't be an issue. However, I'm not sure what the impact would be of the second method. I want your opinion on it." Shikoku listened carefully. Despite his intelligence, Hiruzen's next words surprised him. Hiruzen said, "I am planning to create a new seat in the council, a council member who will represent the civilian ninjas, and I want to give that to Fujin." Shikaku hadn't expected Hiruzen to think of such a thing. He immediately began analyzing if it was feasible. After some time, he said, "Until now, civilian ninjas don't have a seat on the council, though Jiraiya and Orochimaru participated at times. It was due to their status as the Sanins. Fujin doesn't have the same reputation and influence as they did, but if you create a new seat, that won't be an issue. Creating a new seat should be fine as well as there are already a few non-ninja civilians on the council to handle the civilian matters. The only issue is Fujin himself. He is still too young, and we clan leaders represent our clans. But can Fujin really represent all the civilian ninjas? Currently, the number of civilian ninjas far exceeds that of any clan, since he doesn't have any fame here apart from his bounty and his title. It will raise a lot of questions and perhaps some dissatisfaction from the civilian ninjas. Do you need to give him that post so impatiently? There is no harm in waiting for a few more years." Hiruzen replied, "I have been sending him on almost all negotiations. If I don't give him a seat on the council, then other countries will think that I am sending the spectral swordsman to intimidate them during negotiations. But if he is an official council member, then it sends an entirely different message. At the same time, it gives him the authority to close deals. As for his reputation and dissatisfaction from others, it isn't an issue. With time, as his strength gets slowly exposed, his reputation will grow by itself and the voices of dissatisfaction will disappear as well." Shikaku nodded and said, "That's true. All right, go ahead. I'll ask Iniachi and Choza to support your proposal. The civilians will support you easily as well, so there shouldn't be any trouble in passing the proposal to create a new seat, even if some clan leaders or elders oppose that. Though Fujin's appointment might face some opposition, it can be easily resolved by informing the clan leaders about Juzo's death. None of the clan leaders would oppose him in that case." Hiruzen nodded. He discussed a bit more with Shikaku before letting him go. As Shikoku appeared back in his office, a smile appeared on his face. He thought, "That troublemaker finally quit. This was a good surprise. I can finally sleep now." Suddenly Shikoku's eyes widened as he realized something. He thought, "Wait a minute. Why did Hiruzen allow Fujin to retire? Does that mean anyone can retire? Why does he keep blocking my retirement plans then? I need to know how Fujin convinced Hiruzen to let him go." Fujin was unaware of Hiruzen's plans. He was more concerned about Hiruzen's friend instead. He worked on the seal all night until an alarm rang. Fujin shut the alarm and thought, "I lost track of time. It is 4:45 am in the morning. Naruto should arrive soon." Chapter 396, in Dispilni, Fujin freshened up and went to the training ground opposite his house while his shadow clones continued working on the seal. As he walked, Fujin analyzed, "Though the seal is quite complicated, I should be able to learn it faster than the 4-symbol seal. Without having to worry about any missions, I can keep training this non-stop alongside my wind domain." He soon saw Naruto, who was waiting restlessly inside the training ground. As soon as Naruto saw Fujin, he immediately became excited. He thought, he came. Fujin noticed his restlessness and excitement and realized he was worried that I wouldn't show up. So much mental trauma. I wonder whether Minato would have given up his life if he knew how Naruto would be treated. Even though the answer seemed simple, Fujin wasn't sure. The will of fire burned intensely within some ninjas. Those ninjas would still choose to serve the village, even if the village harmed their friends and family. Their decisions were difficult for someone like Fujin, who gave the highest priority to himself to comprehend. He asked, "How long have you been waiting here?" Naruto replied, "Only 25 minutes." Fujin said, "You don't need to show up too early. Just come at the exact moment. If I'm ever late, just knock on the house opposite the training ground." Naruto asked, "That large house is yours?" Fujin nodded and said, "Let's start. Before we begin, show me the jutsus you can perform." Naruto nodded and immediately showed Fujin the 3 basic ninjutsus. While he performed the jutsus, Fujin's chakra field spread out and covered the entire training ground. Immediately, 2 figures escaped from the training ground and flickered outside. Both had a frown behind their masks. One of the 2 was the same root ninja whom Fujin had threatened the day before. Due to Danzo's instructions, he obediently left and stood outside the training ground. The other one was an Ambu assigned by Hiruzen to keep an eye on Naruto. After leaving the training ground, he wondered, Ambu Captain Suzuki Fujin. Though he met up with Naruto yesterday, I didn't think that he would actually show up today. But is he doing it by himself or did Lord Hokage ask him to? He thought for a bit and decided, Lord Hokage should have told me if he assigned him this job. I should inform him to be safe. He created Shadow Clone which immediately flickered away. Unlike the root ninja, he didn't bother confronting Fujin. He was aware of Fujin's Ember Captain rank and knew that he couldn't command him. So he decided to stay back and wait for Hiruzen's response. Fujin analyzed Naruto's jutsus. Not bad. His substitution jutsu and transformation jutsu are very well mastered. The clones are horrible though, but it's not exactly his fault. Failing at the clone jutsu wasn't uncommon. However, in almost every case, that would happen because the academy student couldn't infuse enough chakra to create a good clone. However, with Naruto, it was the complete opposite. The chakra he infused into the clones was too high. In addition, his chakra control was terrible. Fujin thought, even if his chakra control becomes very good, it is unlikely that he can create a clone. Unless he decided to create something like 100,000 clones, but that has its own set of challenges. Fujin wasn't particularly interested in helping Naruto learn the clone jutsu. While he wanted Naruto to view him favorably, he wanted to do so while minimizing the impact on future events. Though some changes would invariably happen, as long as they weren't too drastic, Fujin could take advantage of his knowledge. Seeing Fujin in thought, Naruto asked, "What do you think?" Fujin nodded and said, "Except for the clone jutsu, you can perform the remaining 2 well, so you might have some chance to learn what I am planning to teach you." Naruto immediately became excited and asked, "Will you teach me the jutsu to control Ramen using the wind like you did?" Fujin shook his head and answered, "That wasn't a jutsu, it was just the application of a few jutsus." Naruto became confused. He interrupted Fujin and asked, "What does that mean?" Fujin explained patiently, "The method of using a jutsu isn't limited to one. Once you properly master a jutsu, you can use it in several different ways. It is only restricted by your creativity. You will understand it soon. For now, I will teach you 4 jutsus that will help you control the wind." Naruto's eyes immediately sparkled. He exclaimed 4 jutsus. Fujin ignored his excitement, extended his palm in another direction, and said, "Watch carefully. This jutsu is called the Gale Jutsu." Naruto focused his attention on Fujin's hand. Soon, a small amount of wind was released from Fujin's palm. It created a small wind flow and blew away all the fallen leaves and some soil in its path. Fujin explained, "This is the most basic jutsu in wind nature manipulation. Once you learn this, I will teach you 3 more jutsus." Fujin taught Naruto the hand seals for the jutsu and explained the inner workings of the jutsu in a language that Naruto could understand. He asked, "Did you understand?" Naruto nodded his head repeatedly and said, "I got it. I will create the strongest wind, believe it." Naruto weaved hand signs and shouted, "Gale Jutsu." As he shouted, he moved his right palm forward forcefully as if he was pushing the air and then maintained that form. Unfortunately for Naruto, no wind flowed from his palm. As he stood, a gentle breeze flowed in the opposite direction and blew a leaf into his face, making him look incredibly stupid. Fujin watched with a deadpan expression. This kid, his ability to manipulate chakra is horrible. No, even horrible is too kind of a word. Had it been someone else watching, they would have questioned Naruto's talent. Not being able to do something so basic usually showed that the ninja had little to no talent in ninjutsu, something that was for a ninja like Rock Lee. In fact, every teacher in the academy believed that to be the case for Naruto. Had Fujin not known about Naruto's future achievements, he might have thought the same as well, but Fujin was very clear about how monstrous Naruto's talent was. What he was seeing was just a result of the indiscipline of the highest grade. Naruto asked in an awkward voice, "Why didn't any wind blow?" He looked at Fujin nervously and said, "Don't worry, I will do it this time." He quickly weaved his hand signs, shouted the name of the jutsu and pushed his palm out again. Obviously, the result wasn't any different. Of course, Naruto wouldn't quit. He continued trying the jutsu again and again non-stop. Fujin didn't say anything and just observed Naruto. He analyzed. Though he has a massive amount of chakra, he is barely even able to manipulate him. The reason why he is able to perform the substitution and transformation jutsu so well should be due to working on them for an extremely long time. But if he has to learn a new jutsu, especially one that needs the user to need chakra inside his body, he will struggle a lot. The reason for this is very simple. He just has rarely trained in this aspect. Unlike me, who went systematically, he is directly trying to learn the jutsus despite not having the basics down. Fujin observed Naruto, who was getting more desperate, and wondered, "It has only been 5 years since I left the academy. How did the quality of teachers drop so much? Or rather, why did the academy stop being strict, even if I assume that Naruto was the only one being ignored? Why didn't Hiruzen assign him a teacher who could ensure that Naruto had the basics right? After all, even if I ignore his parents, he is the Jinwekirik. How can a Jinwekirik be allowed to be so terrible at basics?" Fujin couldn't make any sense of it, though he normally marveled at Hiruzen's schemes. His decisions in regard to Naruto confused him. Had he been in his place, raising the Jinwekirik to be strong and creating more bonds for him in the village had been his first move. He didn't understand why Hiruzen didn't do that, and why no one, be it the elders or the clan leaders, pushed him to do it. After trying unsuccessfully a few hundred times, Naruto walked back to Fujin with his head down. He said, "I'm sorry, I couldn't do it, but I promise that I will learn it quickly. Believe it." Fujin sighed and raised his arm. Naruto was fearful but didn't move. In the next moment, a karate chop landed on Naruto's head. Naruto immediately held his head but quickly realized that didn't hurt. Of course, Fujin didn't intend to hurt Naruto. That was just an action to calm him down and stop Naruto from being too fidgety. Fujin asked, "Did you forget what I said yesterday?" Chapter 397, Temptation. Naruto looked up and asked, "What did you say?" Fujin replied, "I said that you will have to work for hours daily for a few months to learn that. Why are you thinking that you will learn it in 15 minutes? And what are you so upset about? I needed more than a month to learn this jutsu perfectly. Others need around 3 months to learn it. I will ask you again, can you put in the hard work needed to learn this jutsu? If not, you can quit now and save yourself from a lot of trouble." Naruto immediately responded, "I will train until I learn the jutsu." Fujin nodded and said, "Good. For the next 3 hours keep practicing seriously, even if it seems like you aren't making any progress. In truth you will be, so don't get restless." Naruto nodded and started his practice again. He was very grateful that Fujin continued teaching him and didn't abandon him because he was slow at learning. As for Fujin, he just observed while thinking, "Though my words were a lie, it will give him some hope. If he knew that I learnt it within a few days, he would be very discouraged. That said, I am not sure if that's a bad thing considering his never-give-up attitude. Still, I should give him some tips slowly. That chakra control needs to improve, even if just slightly. However, asking him to meditate would likely lead nowhere. I recall him saying Tu had never taken that seriously. Guess I'll have to make up some bullshit, and maybe I should introduce him to the leaf-cutting exercise as well. Though training wind affinity isn't needed for a low-level jutsu like this one, it won't be any harm. And it will give him something to do to spend time." Fujin sat down with his back against a tree while Naruto practiced. Though he kept an eye on Naruto, his mind began thinking about the frying Thunder God seal. He had 100 shadow clones working on it, so he didn't need to practice it himself. Instead, he recalled the various theories in the scroll. Though practicing the seal was important, studying and analyzing it was equally important in Fujin's eyes. Unlike Fujin, whose day was going as planned, a certain someone had a strange start to his day. Hiruzen had just reached his office when he saw an Ambu waiting for him. He immediately informed him about Fujin's actions. With a confused expression, Hiruzen sat on his chair and grabbed his crystal ball. He thought. First he leaves the Anbu and then he suddenly takes an interest in Naruto. What is Fujin up to? He began watching in the crystal ball. Soon, the scene of Naruto practicing Gel's jutsu and Fujin monitoring him appeared in the crystal ball. Hiruzen observed for a few minutes but nothing else happened. That confused Hiruzen even more. He wondered, why is Fujin teaching Naruto rank E and jutsus? Does he intend to guide him like he did for those 5 orphans? But why Naruto? And he should know that Naruto has 9 tails sealed inside him. Hiruzen analyzed and had a few guesses, but he had a feeling that none of his guesses were right. He decided, I'll need to keep an eye on him. Fujin seems to have a soft spot for orphans, so he won't harm Naruto. On the contrary, this might be good for him. But I need to monitor him. He rarely does things that are completely selfless. Besides, a smile formed on Hiruzen's face as he realized. I doubt Danzo would want someone to gain influence on Naruto. Fujin's current actions might force him out. It will be interesting to see a confrontation between these two. Regardless, if he crosses any lines, I will get a reasonable excuse to take away the kids he recruited from the Land of Water. Though it would result in him pulling the root out of the Land of Water, it won't be a loss. Both rebels and the Mizukage factions have realized that their next generation is being kidnapped and have started taking action. Getting any more kids out of that country will be very difficult. However, this will spoil my idea of having Danzo rebuild Root and handing it over to Fujin or Kakashi. Hiruzen thought for a bit before letting out a sigh. He decided, leave it. Becoming the shinobi of darkness isn't easy, and there is always the possibility of losing yourself to the darkness like Danzo has. I have a feeling that the next generation might not need the darkness that we needed. If they do, they can always recreate it. Hiruzen grabbed a few files and thought, I was planning to do this after a few days, but now I want to talk with Fujin to see if I can understand his intentions behind training Naruto. He immediately began working on the paperwork needed to promote Fujin to the elite Chunin rank officially. Naruto trained for 3 hours straight. He hadn't made any progress but still had the same enthusiasm as earlier. He finally started getting tired. However, Fujin couldn't help but feel a tiny bit of envy after observing Naruto properly. He observed, he isn't tired because his chakra is getting depleted. Instead, he is tired due to thrusting his palm forward again and again for 3 hours straight. Sigh, what insane chakra reserves. Fujin couldn't help but think, I began training at the age of 5. After joining the academy at 6, I created proper training plans and followed them rigorously, without taking a day off for years. It still took me more than 5 years to go from the level of an academy student to Junin. And it took me 2 more years from there to reach the level of elite Junin, and another 2 years to reach the rank S. But Naruto, if I were to teach him seriously, I could easily raise him from his current weak self to a Junin even before he graduates. Heck, he might even reach the elite Junin level by then. I will just need to teach him the shadow clone jutsu, then improve his chakra control to an acceptable level and let the magic happen. He can easily master the wind element within a few weeks and learn most of my wind jutsus thanks to the broken combination of shadow clone jutsu and insane chakra reserves. Once he learns to supercharge jutsus, he will have a stronger offense than most Junins. And with his chakra, he can keep spamming them until the other side runs dry and escapes or dies. Going to rank S from there won't be very difficult either, perhaps in just 1 more year. He could reach that. Fujin couldn't help but sigh at the unfairness. At the same time, he had a temptation in his heart, a temptation to teach Naruto seriously and make him ridiculously overpowered. However, after a few minutes, Fujin shook his head and decided, unfortunately, doing that has the potential to completely ruin any knowledge of the future I have. Would Hiruzen put Naruto on the same squad as Sasuke and under Kakashi if he is already close to the elite Chunin level? If he does, how would it impact their clash with Zabuza? How will his relationship with Sasuke be if he is so much stronger than him, even before graduating? And if Naruto reaches close to rank S by the time the Chunin exams take place, his encounter with Orochimaru will turn out to be very different, with his unpredictability. He might even prevent Orochimaru from putting the cursed seal on Sasuke, and it is possible that Akatsuki might take him very seriously and attack preemptively. After all, unlike the rest of the ninjas, rank S would merely be a starting point for Naruto. As he continuously keeps growing stronger, even Obito and Nagato, despite their arrogance, might not want to risk seeing Naruto getting stronger. Irrespective of what happens, my advantage will be completely ruined. Though I would still be a rank S ninja, and my life won't be threatened easily. I'll lose out on a lot of critical opportunities. Fujin could only shake his head and give up on that idea, though he pitied Naruto's situation and could fully explore his potential. Fujin's gains just didn't match up with the horrendous losses he would incur due to the opportunities he would have given up. Naruto was oblivious to the opportunity he just lost. Of course, even without Fujin's help, his future would still be very bright. Though Fujin decided against helping Naruto too much, he didn't intend to block his path to rank S and even planned on assisting him a bit and making his path slightly easier. As he trained, Naruto's breathing became rougher. He wanted to stop but thought, I have to keep going. I have to show that I am serious about learning this jutsu. He weaved hand signs, thrusted his palm forward, and once again shouted, Gale Jutsu, Chapter 398. Building a bond, Gale Jutsu. Naruto thrust his palm forward but nothing happened as usual. He was about to do it again when he felt a hand on his shoulder. Naruto turned around to see Fujin standing there. Fujin said, You look tired, that's enough training for now. Naruto immediately replied, I can still keep training. Fujin replied, I am sure you can, but rest is equally important. While you rest, think about what you practice and analyze how you can improve. Fujin's words confused Naruto. He wondered, analyze? What should I analyze? However, he still nodded his head. Fujin said, For now, go and eat something. Do you want to train in the afternoon as well, or will you be playing with your friends? On hearing the question, Naruto immediately became depressed. Though he would occasionally hang out with the boys in his classroom. It would generally happen when the academy was on. During vacations, meeting up with them would be very rare. Naruto nervously asked, Can I train with you? Fujin had expected such a response, which is why he had asked it in the first place. He answered, Sure. You can go to eat and return in an hour. Naruto excitedly said, Yahoo, I'll be back in no time, believe it. He was about to run away when Fujin said, Wait, what are you planning to eat? Naruto turned around and replied proudly, obviously instant ramen. Fujin put up a curious expression and asked, Do you eat anything else? Naruto showed confusion on his face as he asked, Why would I eat anything else? Fujin sighed and said, You are coming with me. Fujin began walking. Naruto quickly followed him and asked, Where are we going? Fujin replied, To eat. Naruto became excited and asked, Are we going to Ikuraka? Fujin chuckled and answered, Nope, no ramen for you today. Naruto stopped moving. A look of horror appeared on his face. He shrieked, You can't do that to me. Fujin smirked and said, Sure I can. He raised his right hand and snapped his fingers. Immediately the wind began flowing around Naruto. Naruto tried moving, but it was very difficult. Fujin grinned heavily and said, If I want to, you won't even be able to eat. Naruto was dumbstruck. The wind around him was so dense that he couldn't move his arms and legs. In addition, he felt the wind revolving around him at a very high speed. He looked at Fujin furfully. He hadn't expected Fujin to do something like that. He understood that Fujin's threat was true. Suddenly, the pressure around him disappeared, and Fujin began laughing loudly. He said, Ha ha ha, you should have seen your face, ha ha ha. Naruto immediately understood that he was pranked. His face immediately became red in embarrassment. He was the one who always pranked others, and not the other way around. He cursed, You jerk, and ran towards Fujin and punched towards him. Fujin easily blocked all his punches and kicks with just one arm without moving and slightly pushed him back, making him lose his balance and fall on his buttocks. Fujin chuckled and asked, After doing so many pranks, you never expected that someone would prank you as well? Naruto snorted childishly and turned his head away and said, I just didn't see it coming. Besides, that was so uncool. Fujin said, All right, don't keep moping and follow me. Though what I did was a prank. You aren't eating ramen today. Naruto tried arguing. But, however, Fujin cut him off and said, Don't worry, there are a lot of delicious foods in Konoha. I'll take you there. If you don't eat any noodles today, I'll teach you some techniques to help you learn Geljutsu faster. Naruto asked, Really, but... Naruto was in two minds. He didn't want to give up on ramen, but Fujin's offer was very tempting as well. Fujin sighed and said, I'll treat you to Ikuraka tomorrow, so just follow me. Naruto's eyes immediately sparkled. He jumped and said, You are the best. Fujin began walking towards one of the sushi restaurants in Konoha. On the street, several odd looks fell on Fujin and Naruto. Naruto became a bit nervous, but since Fujin didn't react, he didn't say anything and tried to ignore them. Fujin couldn't help but wonder. Facing such looks every time he steps out on the street, how bad would that be? He thought for a bit and concluded, It won't affect me at all. Why would I care about what random people think? However, this is because I am far more mature mentally. Had this happened when I was under 12 in my previous life, then I would have been affected a lot too. Unfortunately, there wasn't much Fujin could do in regards to those stairs. The damage was long done. Hiruzen and others in charge had messed up long back. It was already too late for anyone to do anything about it. As unfair as it was, the change could only happen slowly as Naruto gained more respect due to his actions. Fujin shook those thoughts from his mind and entered the restaurant with Naruto following him. Once again, they received very unfriendly looks. Fujin ignored them and sat on a table. He looked at Naruto and asked, "What do you want to eat?" Naruto ignored the looks and began going through the menu. Since he had never been to that restaurant, he was confused, so Fujin asked him about his preferences and gave him some suggestions, while the two of them were busy deciding. The rest of the restaurant wasn't very peaceful. A few customers saw Naruto, got up and left. As for others, they became much silent. The owner had a frown on his face as he saw that he was losing customers. He looked at Fujin and thought, "That boy comes here frequently and orders a lot. But why did he suddenly bring that demon here?" He walked towards Fujin and Naruto with an unfriendly look on his face. He stood next to their table and asked angrily, "What are you doing in my restaurant?" Naruto immediately had a grim expression. He had already experienced that several times and knew what was about to happen. While he had gotten used to it by now, he was afraid that it would force Fujin to go away from him. However, to his surprise, Fujin didn't react much and just stared into the owner's eyes. He replied with a hint of amusement, "To eat, of course. Why else would someone come to your restaurant?" Naruto had expected the owner to blow up, but to his surprise, nothing like that took place. Fujin smiled kindly and said, "I hope you give us your best hospitality. Naruto, make your order." The restaurant owner was shaking in his boots, though Naruto felt that Fujin's smile was kind. The restaurant owner was terrified due to the killing intent he felt when their eyes met. Fujin hadn't unleashed his killing intent entirely like he did with Root Ninja, but what little he used was enough to terrify a civilian. He immediately nodded and said enthusiastically, "Of course, everyone who comes to my restaurant is my valued guest. What do you like to eat? It will be on the house." Fujin pointed towards Naruto and said, "Ask him. As for the money, don't worry, I have plenty." The owner looked at Naruto and tried smiling as well as he could in that circumstance and asked, "What would you like to eat, young man?" Naruto was surprised by the sudden change in the owner. He placed a rather large order for himself. Fujin ordered some sushi as well. The owner wrote down their order and immediately left. As soon as he exited from the dining room, his legs finally gave up. He dropped to the floor and sat down. His entire back was wet due to fear. He thought, "Why didn't he ever say that he was a ninja? I wouldn't have dared to do something so stupid." Though the crimes committed by ninjas on civilians were close to nil due to the strict laws of Konoha, they still happened at times. Even if they didn't, a civilian would naturally be afraid of a ninja due to the large difference in their strength. So the owner didn't dare to offend Fujin after realizing the threat. Even if he got justice, he didn't want to pay for it with his life. He quickly went to the kitchen and overlooked the process of cooking to ensure that nothing went wrong with the order. Naruto was still confused. He asked, how did he go from angry and grumpy to kind and gentle so quickly? Fujin shrugged and said, "Who knows? Maybe he had a bad day or a bad customer earlier, or perhaps he didn't get a proper sleep. Hard to say. I guess my smile reminded him to act kindly. What do you think?" Naruto tried thinking, but he couldn't find anything wrong with Fujin's words. After all, Fujin had smiled and the man suddenly started acting nice. He just nodded absently and muttered, "I guess smiling is good to calm others down." Chapter 399, Promotion 8. As they waited for the food, Fujin made some small talk with Naruto and asked him some questions about his daily life, which Naruto talked about enthusiastically. After some time, the owner arrived with the order. Fujin looked at him and wondered, is he so scared that he won't even ask his employees to serve us, fearing that they might make a mistake? Oh well, whatever. The owner arranged the food on the table in a way that made it very pleasing aesthetically. Though nervous, he put up a smile on his face and said, "Enjoy your meal. I hope it is to your liking." A look of surprise appeared on Naruto's face. It was the first time someone had arranged food for him this way. He enthusiastically said, "I will, thank you." Old man, he immediately dug in. Fujin didn't particularly care about the aesthetics but enjoyed the range of emotions the owner was experiencing. He began eating as well. The food was obviously delicious. Naruto exclaimed, "This is delicious." Fujin nodded and said, "Of course it is. Did you think that only noodles taste good?" Naruto said, "I didn't know. I have never been here before." He continued eating. Fujin thought, Of course he didn't. Only one restaurant in the village accepts him enthusiastically. It's little wonder why he prefers eating ramen all the time. Though, to be fair, it does taste good and needs minimal time and effort to make at home, making it very convenient for an orphan who lives alone and has no idea on how to do so properly. The owner watched nervously from a distance, seeing that both were enjoying the food. He breathed a sigh of relief. After some time, all the food on the table was cleared. Fujin asked Naruto whether he wanted more, but Naruto was full, so Fujin asked the owner to bring the bill. The owner offered to have the food on the house once again, but Fujin insisted on the bill. Not wanting to offend him unnecessarily, the owner brought him a bill. Naruto looked at it curiously and was shocked. The total amount was 5,460 ryo. He asked, so much? Naruto generally spent only a few hundred ryo in Ikuraka, and depended a lot on the coupons to get free or discounted ones. Fujin nodded and said, yup, and considering how much you ate, you have to pay 4,380 ryo. He placed the bill in front of a shocked and tongue-tied Naruto. Naruto nervously grabbed his frog-shaped wallet and said, I don't think Gama-chan can afford that. Fujin immediately laughed lightly and said, I'm just messing with you. Naruto looked at Fujin and pouted in annoyance. It was the second time in a very short time that he got pranked. Fujin paid the bill and they returned to the training ground. Recalling Fujin's words, Naruto excitedly asked, which trick will you teach me to help me learn the Gale Jutsu quickly? Instead of answering him, Fujin asked, did they teach you the leaf concentration exercise in the academy? Naruto nodded and replied, yes, Iruka-sensei did. Fujin asked, how long can you hold it? Naruto answered, I am not sure, maybe 5 minutes. Fujin sighed internally and thought, yeah, I guess so. Almost everyone from Fujin's class could hold it for longer after just their first year, so Naruto's current ability was just too bad. And it had nothing to do with his large amount of chakra, and instead just showed a serious lack of effort on Naruto's part. Fujin said, my trick is very similar. You'll sit on the ground, stick a leaf to your forehead and use chakra to ensure that it doesn't fall off your head. However, while you do that, you will also try to feel the winds flowing around you that will make that leaf fall off your head. If you can feel the winds properly and ensure that the leaf sticks to your head for 2 hours continuously, you'll be able to learn Gale Jutsu in a few days. Naruto's eyes widened. He asked, only a few days? Fujin nodded and said, yes. However, keeping the leaf stuck to your head for that long won't be very easy either. You'll need to be very serious to do so, but if you manage to do that, it will be very helpful in any wind jutsu you learn in the future. Naruto immediately replied, I'll keep the leaf stuck to my head for 2 hours. Believe it, he immediately grabbed a leaf, sat on the ground and placed it on his head. Fujin's words about feeling the wind were obviously bullshit. It had nothing to do with the leaf concentration exercise or the Gale Jutsu. He just said it so that Naruto would have something to do while doing the leaf concentration exercise and wouldn't quit out of boredom like he did when Iruka tried to get him to do that. Fujin looked at Naruto and thought, as long as I don't teach him the shadow clone jutsu and use it to train him, his growth shouldn't explode beyond control. I'll get him to improve his chakra control and teach him a few wind until graduation. I'm interested to see how Naruto would develop if he already has a few wind jutsus under his belt before graduating. Anyway, Naruto will be here for a while. I have already spent a lot of my time with him. This is enough rest for me. Fujin created a shadow clone and went back to his home. He dismissed the clones in his basement, created new ones and continued working on the Flying Thunder God seal. A couple of hours later, the shadow clone watching over Naruto suddenly became alert and turned his eyes in a direction. A few seconds later, an amber ninja stealthily flickered behind him. He muttered a few words in his ears and left. Naruto, who was still training, didn't notice the amber arriving and leaving. Fujin's clone wondered, Hiruzen wants to see me? That's strange. I expected Danzo to make a move. However, he hasn't done anything yet while Hiruzen called for me. He created a shadow clone with the least amount of chakra and dispelled it. Immediately the memory was sent to Fujin and the clones in the basement. Fujin wondered the same but couldn't say for sure. He grabbed the report he had written and left towards the Hokage building while his clones continued working. A few minutes later, he appeared inside Hiruzen's office and asked, did something happen? At the same time, he handed over the report and said, this is the mission report for my previous mission. Hiruzen accepted the scroll and handed him another scroll. He said, the reason for calling you is related to this mission. Due to your recent achievements, I have decided to officially promote you to the elite Junin rank. Fujin's eyes widened for a moment. He asked, officially, isn't that too soon? Though Fujin's strength had long reached that rank, Konoha would rarely grant it to ninjas who were still very young. In fact, Kakashi was promoted to that rank just slightly more than a year ago, while Guy had been promoted only a couple of months ago, and both were nearly a decade older than Fujin. So Fujin wasn't expecting this promotion. Hiruzen replied, "No, I don't promote ninjas officially to this rank to avoid them being targeted too much by our enemies. But you have already been attacked several times and have proven yourself to be strong enough to ensure your safety and inflict heavy losses on the enemy, so no need to worry." Fujin nodded and said, "All right, thanks for the promotion." Fujin didn't particularly care much about the promotion. It didn't grant him a lot of benefits other than increasing his reputation, and it didn't have much disadvantage either, as his bounty was already very shocking. Fujin asked, "Is that all?" Hiruzen nodded. Fujin said, "All right, I'll see you later, Grandpa." He turned around and was about to walk out when Hiruzen said, "I almost forgot." Fujin stopped and turned around. Hiruzen said, "I recently saw you with Naruto. What is your opinion of him?" Fujin looked at Hiruzen and wondered, he should have been told about this yesterday or this morning. Don't tell me that he promoted me just to get a good excuse to call me here without seeming overbearing. Of course, he didn't show his thoughts on his face and said, "He is definitely interesting. The amount of chakra he has is enviable. Unfortunately, he hasn't trained properly. His ability to manipulate and control his chakra is extremely bad." A frown appeared on his face as he asked, "Did the academy teachers ignore him? Or has the academy become very lenient lately? There is no way he'd be this bad if he had someone like Genki-sensei looking over him." Chapter 400, Hiruzen's Knowledge Danzo's Opportunity. Hiruzen was surprised by the question. He thought, "I never imagined that Fujin would be interested in the affairs of the academy. Now that I think about it, he was very methodological and disciplined in his training." He answered, "It is the second case. Our number of ninjas has recovered from the several losses we took. So there is no need to push the academy students to graduate earlier or train too hard. Let them enjoy their childhood and maintain their innocence for a bit longer." Fujin wasn't surprised by the answer. He had expected that such a thing would happen. After all, it was very difficult to maintain the same level of discipline when people lived peacefully and without any grave threat. However, he was still curious about Hiruzen's thinking. From his point of view, Hiruzen should have pushed for students to be properly trained instead of taking it easy. He asked, "Is that so? I can understand not allowing early graduation, but why is the training lenient as well? Wouldn't it be beneficial if they are trained properly so that they will be able to fight well on graduating?" Hiruzen shook his head and said, "Your analysis isn't incorrect, but you are missing a few critical aspects. Maintaining the same intensity for a long time is difficult. If I sustain it forcefully, then the village will slowly feel the exhaustion, and when the time for battle comes, they won't be able to give it their all. It's like how you felt the exhaustion of continuously doing missions and wanting to take a rest. The same also happens with other ninjas and also the academy teachers. Once they see their teachers, parents and other elders exhausted all the time, the exhaustion will also brush off on the students and negatively impact their growth." Fujin was surprised by Hiruzen's words. He hadn't considered that aspect. He thought, "Now that I think about it, Konoha has been tense ever since Minato's death. When conditions seemed to have improved, the Uchiha clan was massacred and Konoha lost 2 young rank S ninjas and a lot of Junins and elite Junins. Now that the village can relax again, it's no surprise that everyone is relaxing until hell breaks loose again." Fujin was snapped out of his thoughts as Hiruzen added with a smile, "Besides, the methodological way of training isn't always good for raising the next generation." Fujin was confused. He asked, "What do you mean?" Though Fujin had his thoughts on the matter, he wasn't arrogant enough to think that he knew better than Hiruzen at how to train ninjas. After all, Hiruzen had trained 3 ninjas who were strong enough to become a kage. And 2 of them weren't even part of any clans or had any good background. Not to mention, he had looked over Konoha's academy for decades. Hiruzen answered, "Training students methodologically is a good way of ensuring that most of them become chunings, and some of them become special junins or junins. But it is very rare for an elite junin or a rank S ninja to come from this method of training. For instance, from your batch, you are the only one to have reached this level. No one else has even been officially promoted to the Junin rank, though Hoka and Teru have reached that level of strength. The rest from your elite classroom have become chunnings. As for the other classes, most are still genins. They will need another 3 to 5 years to become chunnings. If I compare other batches that graduate a few years before you, they are even worse when it comes to the number of junins, despite having a similar number of chunnins." Fujin thought for a few seconds and said, I see, but I don't see how not following a methodological way would help someone to become stronger. Hiruzen shook his head and said, it's difficult to explain. As you grow older and experience more, you might understand. Fujin nodded and said, all right. He was about to leave when Hiruzen said, I am surprised that you are so interested in this matter. Do you want to be involved in the academy, or perhaps become a Junin sensei? Fujin shook his head and said, not in the near future. I was just curious about it due to meeting Naruto. Besides, I am too young to be a Junin sensei. Fujin had too many things planned. He couldn't assign any time to guiding more kids. Hiruzen nodded disappointedly and thought, he just started his vacation. I'll have a discussion with him before the next batch graduates. Fujin said, I'll see you later, Grandpa. Thanks for the promotion again. Fujin turned around and left. Hiruzen smiled and thought, perhaps getting him into the council would bring more benefits to Konoha than I assumed. He went back to his work while Fujin went back to his basement and continued working on the Flying Thunder God Seal until noon. At noon, Fujin asked Naruto to stop training and took him out to lunch. Their experience was quite similar to the sushi restaurant. Naruto couldn't help but marvel as he thought, wow, Fujin is so good. Just a smile from him turns all their angry faces into a smile, and they treat me so well. Fujin could read Naruto's thoughts from his expressions easily. He couldn't help but wonder what Naruto's reaction would have been had he known what was actually happening. After lunch, the two returned to the training ground. Fujin grabbed a leaf and said, this is the next trick to help you. Observe carefully. Naruto observed the leaf in Fujin's hand with full seriousness. Suddenly, it was cut into two without Fujin taking any action. Fujin explained, this is the training to improve your ability to manipulate the wind chakra. Once you can do it, it will help you in learning other wind jutsus. So this, along with keeping the leaf stuck to your forehead for 2 hours, are 2 things you'll need to complete if you want to learn all my 4 jutsus quickly. Naruto nodded and said, all right, it's just cutting the leaf. I'll get it done in no time, believe it. He immediately began trying it. Fujin thought, it's good to see that he is still upbeat despite failing in everything I have asked of him so far. Well, they should keep him busy for a few days until his patience runs out. Fujin left a shadow clone to watch over Naruto and answer his doubts if he had any. While the two of them trained, the news of Fujin's promotion reached the clan leaders in Konoha, since they already knew about his bounty and title. They weren't surprised, however, they wondered why Fujin was no longer in Ambu. Under Konoha, in a dark hidden room, Danzo sat with 2 scrolls in front of him. Both were open. He stared at them but wasn't reading and instead was analyzing them. He thought. Hiruzen promoted Fujin to Elite Junin. On the surface, this doesn't look odd. He promoted Hatak Kakashi and Might Guy not too long back. Soon, he will promote his younger son as well. These new promotions signal to our enemies that Konoha's next generation is ready. However, Fujin's promotion is different. It means that he is no longer a part of Ambu. But, Danzo wondered, why would Hiruzen let go of such a good piece? No, that isn't his nature. It's too early for him to allow the boy to retire. Most likely Fujin quit himself. As for the reason, Danzo's eyes moved towards the second scroll as he thought, my root spies in the Land of Water sent an intelligence report. Hazuki Mangetsu led numerous hunter ninjas into the Land of Waterfall. He returned with the Kabibi Koryoka and the news that Biwa Juzo was dead. However, they didn't claim that Mangetsu killed him. That means someone else killed Juzo. In addition, several dozen Kiri ninjas died. Fujin's Ambu squad didn't go to the Land of Waterfall and instead went somewhere else. Most likely he took that mission to the Land of Hot Water. However, instead of just facing Kirigujka, he also had to face an Akatsuki member. Danzo analyzed it for some time. A glint appeared in his eye as he sensed an opportunity. He thought, in his previous mission, he was ambushed by Igawatka and put in a difficult spot. This time, he had to fight Juzo, someone who shouldn't have been there. Did he get upset at how bad Hiruzen's intelligence reports are? If he did and is upset with Hiruzen, then it makes sense for him to quit Ambu in frustration and disappointment over Hiruzen. In that case, this is the right time to recruit him into Root, but I need to prepare first. Danzo sensed an opportunity that he wasn't willing to let go of. Fujin was unaware of Danzo's misunderstanding, but he was expecting him and waiting for him either way.